I miss that sexy smile, looking for to see you. I hope I will lose control. Love you every night, no checking the time, 'cause I was loving you all night long. I can let you go, baby.
We were watching the intro, having a good time. We're already getting heated, Destiny and I here. We're already getting heated. He is in the house. We're going to have a feisty show for you today. Destiny and I think, agree on very little, I would say. I'm sure there's some stuff in there.
We agree on like 90% of things.
We agree on
10%, oh man.
We agree on like 0.01% of stuff. I'm confident we can find 0.01% somewhere in there.
Okay.
But what I love about you is that you show up and you're not afraid of conversations like this, which, you know, I think both left and right, we can both acknowledge that some people just like the echo chamber, and you and I are not wired that way, which is something we have in common. There you go.
There you go.
So everyone, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do today. It's going to be spicy. It's going to be fun. I typically react to viral video content on this show, as you all know. I thought it would be interesting to do my show, as I often do it, but with someone sitting here and reacting with me who sees the world very differently. Now, I'm sure we're going to butt heads a little bit here, so fasten your seatbelts. Like I say, it's going to get bumpy. Here's what we're responding to today. We got some topics. We got female relationship baggage. What does that look like? Is it a problem? Should it be a problem? We got traditional gender roles we're going to talk about. Hollywood is intentionally emasculating men. Who knew? I did. We're going to talk about that. Drew Afualo. I don't know how well Destiny knows Drew's content, but we're going to talk about her distortion of the male empowerment and self-improvement movement and what she gets wrong. Does he think she's getting it wrong or just me? Entitled liberals. I know he's going to love that one.
Oh, man.
We can dig into that a little bit. We're talking about Andrew Tate as well and what's unfolded in that case. We have very different opinions about Tate in general and probably the unfolding of much of what's happened. And we're going to answer a lot of questions like, can two alphas have a successful relationship? Do women dress up for themselves? Or do they dress up for guys? Lots more like that. Should Andrew and Tristan be released today? We're going to dig into all of that and more. Before I do that, I have to tell you who today's show is brought to you by. It's a sponsor that I love very much. I want to ask you guys this question. Are you struggling at all with brain fog? Have you ever started a sentence and all of a sudden you're like, what was I saying? And that's happening to you way more than it should. Are you struggling with memory? Are you struggling with concentration? Is your focus off? Do you feel like this stuff is off? It used to be better. Something happened to you. It's not quite right. I have a supplement you're going to love. This is something I take every day. No joke. I brought it with me because I wanted to show it to you. I took it this morning. It's called Nadivim. It's my baby. I don't take a lot of supplements. I don't believe in taking a lot of supplements. This one actually changed my life. I take 2 every single day. What is NAD? NAD is a molecule that every single cell in your body needs. Your brain cannot function without NAD. They often do NAD infusions in IVs and stuff like that. There's a center called the New York Center for Innovative Medicine. It's led by one of the leading physicians in the entire world, Dr. Thomas Schultz. I love him to pieces. He created this. They put it in a capsule for you. They tested it thoroughly. They did no heavy metals, no nasty stuff that's going to make you sick. None of that stuff. It's going to keep you sharp. It's going to keep you focused. It's more than just NAD. It has cat's claw, bacopa, CoQ10, glycine to increase absorption and enhance its brain boosting effect. You can't do shows like this if your brain is like, you know, I got a 3-year-old and running around chasing all the time. I need to be sharp. I need to be focused. When I tell you that this supplement changed my life, I mean it. I once ran out. Couple weeks didn't have it, forget it. I was like, what is going on? It really does make an enormous difference if you've been exposed to mold, if you have any sort of toxins you've been exposed to in your life and your brain's kind of struggling to get that junk out of your central nervous system and out of your brain. I'm telling you, this stuff will help you to detoxify all that stuff. You're just going to feel fantastic. I have a special deal for you today. You're going to get 20% off of your subscription. If you head into the description, you're going to go to nadivim.com, use code Jedediah. Just give it a try. You can cancel at any time. Now, why did I do a subscription and not a one-time purchase? Because anyone trying to sell you a supplement who says, take this for a week, you're going to feel better, they're lying to you. I'm not going to lie to you. Got to take the stuff for a couple of months to see the effects. I'm telling you, you're going to be sharper. You're going to be smarter. You're going to be able to sit and have conversations with folks like Destiny and win. Watch. It's coming. So head on into the description, 20% off. And if you ever have suffering with any sort of chronic illness or anything like that, check out the New York Center for Innovative Medicine. They helped me a great deal. I love them to pieces. Thank you for creating this fantastic product. Everyone at home, you know the Matrix is coming for you. I'm here to protect you. Destiny will love it too. Don't worry.
You feel good about that?
What?
Taking performance-enhancing drugs for our
this
conversation?
This is not a performance-enhancing drug.
I would have popped some Addies if I would have known that we were going to be on some crazy neurotropics.
Get this guy some Nadivim, and he'll be sharper than ever. All right. So we're here. Destiny, thank you for coming back. Your last time I saw you, your hair was more brown and longer. So you're going for a different stage. Why do so many liberals? Before we start, what is going on with the purple and the blue hair with liberals? Is it like a trend? You all get together in some type of chat and talk about what you can do with hair. It's a trend I notice all too often.
I think for younger people, there's like the desire to rebel, right? Like everybody is, super progressive in college, and they all want to rebel against their parents. And one of the easiest ways to do that is with piercings, tattoos, and hair dye.
How old are you?
I'm 34.
Okay, you're not that young.
Well, I dyed my hair for charity, not to rebel against my
You
parents.
dyed it for? Oh, okay. What charity?
I don't remember the name of the charity. This was like 3 years ago I did this, but basically, and then I finally delivered on my promise. But for kids that it was either terminal illness or chronic illness that are in hospitals, they give them like video game consoles to play. So when they're in their hospital rooms all day, they don't have like nothing to do.
All right. And then you just kept the trend. It became part of the brand.
Well, I dyed it about 3 or 4 months ago, I think.
Okay.
And it's still here. So I cut my hair one time, it's the brown starting to come in, and
it's
I
very
might dye it
bold.
again because so many people get so triggered when they see the blue-haired guy.
just
It makes me so
funny.
mad.
It's
so
fun.
yeah, I might,
You know what? I see a lot of blue-haired women. I don't see a lot of blue-haired guys. So you do stand out in that respect. I will say that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go. We're going to start here. We're going to get. Don't worry. We're going to. The way that I block the show out is to get increasingly heated as we go along.
That's
I don't
good.
know. I don't know how much we're going to agree or disagree. I really don't know. You may surprise me. You do surprise me sometimes. So.
Well, if we have the worst of the farthest leftist craziest people, we're probably going to agree on almost everything. So we'll see.
Listen, it's your tribe, not mine. Is all I'm going to say.
True.
All right, let's start with female relationship baggage. We're going to start Deli. Clip number 1. Let's go.
Not required of me to make your plate, right? Like, I am not your mom. I'm not required to clean up after you. I'm not required to cook for you. I'm not required to do anything for you, right? Because you did not come out of me. I'm not your mom. As a man, as a person, as a human being, you should have been taught life skills to be self-sufficient. It's not a requirement for me to take care of you. If I want to do something out of the kindness of my heart, that's on me. If I do not want to do it, I'm not doing it. How about you make my plate? How about I cooked? Why don't you say to me, babe, why don't you go sit down? I'm going to make your plate. How much would you like?
They completely skipped over the fact that you just cooked for them.
Right.
They don't give a fuck. And
No.
forget that you cooked. You also have to serve. So
All right, so I watch this and I see resentful, broken women. This is what I see. I do, 100%. And I also see like this is what guys in the red pill are talking about when they say that they'd rather have a woman who hasn't been through hell and back. Like we want someone who's not dated a bunch of guys, because you date guys and you go through, guy after guy after guy, you're ultimately going to wind up like this at some point. You're gonna get some guy that mistreats you. These sound like women to me who have just been.
You don't
through
think
it.
guys have the same issue?
Guys have the same. Well,
where they carry issues from relationship
less
with
so.
them?
Yes, they do. They do absolutely do.
Okay.
Which is why I often tell guys too. Like I'm not a fan of the hookup culture for either side.
Okay.
That's where I'm a little bit different. But I do think that guys internalize and process stuff a little bit different from
Okay,
women.
cool. So we established that that's the exact same for both sides. So the thing of
It's
like
not
wanting
exact-
to
but-
find a woman who
it's
hasn't
not.
been in relationships.
It's not the exact same though. It's not the exact same because women by nature are more emotional creatures, and by virtue of that, I think that we
Emotional how?
internalize in pretty much every way.
Well, except in the ways of enacting violence on domestic partners, except in the ways of like committing like armed robbery or arson or violent
You're
crime.
talking about
like,
testosterone and the role testosterone plays. In
What
a
do
lot
you
of
think?
stuff.
What
Women
do you
don't
think
have
testosterone is? It's a
You don't think
hormone.
women
It
are
affects your
emotional- Wait, hold up,
emotions.
hold up.
What do you mean?
You don't think women are emotional creatures?
If you're gonna,
by nature, you
we're
don't think
all
women-
emotional creatures. But if you're gonna tell me women are emotional because they have estrogen, men are emotional because they have testosterone.
You
Of course,
don't-
we all have different emotions that we
you
deal with
don't
all the time.
You don't think that it's more likely for a woman to go through a bad relationship and internalize and process that more heavily, more strongly than a guy? You don't feel comfortable making that generalization?
No, absolutely not. Everybody can carry with them baggage from prior relationships.
I completely disagree.
You're just
I
completely
think
wrong.
also-
I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, guys can have horrible baggage from past relationships that they bring to future relationships.
Question.
Yeah.
No question that there's a guy out there that could have that experience. But if we were going to make a generalization and say that if, say you pulled 50 women and 50 men and they had all been through some type of garbage relationships, I think those women are going to be scarred more than the guys. And the reason is, let me just tell you why though. I think biologically, when we get back to biology, I think that one of the reasons that hookup culture affects women so badly is because even just the nature of having sex with a man is very internal for women. Like you're literally entering a woman's body. It's intimate by nature. It's vulnerable by nature. Guys have a very different experience. You are the one that's like entering that space. You're in more of a commanding position of authority by nature. So I think you're less likely to internalize a lot of that experience because you're literally internalizing less of that experience biologically by virtue of what you're experiencing through the act. So that's why I say, you just, it's not realistic to say that women and men process the same stuff. I mean,
I never said we process the same stuff. Basically, any explanation, here's like a tip that I give for my audience. Any explanation about relationships that starts with biologically can be completely and totally disregarded. It has nothing to do with the reality of how we deal with relationships. The reality is that people that have gone through bad relationships can come out one of two ways. Either one, you can get traumatized, which is just as possible probably for men as for women. It might be a little bit more likely for women because like a traumatic relationship for a woman might involve like violence or something, whereas for a man it's not as likely. Maybe if we play the numbers, that's true. But in terms of like emotional baggage or in terms of relationship baggage or negative use of partners, those things can come from either men or women, and there is no biology involved in that. It just depends on your hold on. Just depends on your perspective. Secondly, people in their 20s and 30s, as you get later into your 20s and you start dating, you learn what you like and don't like in relationships. When I hear somebody say, I want a younger person that hasn't been in through as many relationships, I hear a pedophile that wants to fuck a 9-year-old that has no experience in the real world. That's what you're saying. Like, I want a girl that's young, that doesn't know any better, that has no about. Yes, that's exactly what you're saying. And anybody that's had real relationship experience that's saying like, oh, I prefer like 19 or 20-year-olds. Like, you want somebody that you manipulate that has no experience.
But that's
somebody that's been through their 20s, knows what they like, knows what they don't like. Some can carry baggage, I guess, but that's true of every single human being, from your parents, from your schools, from your relationships to anything else. The idea that you would prefer somebody that's less experienced, that has less of an idea of what they want, is a statement made by a manipulator. Full stop.
I would absolutely, if I were a man, want somebody who had been around the block less times. I would want somebody.
Why?
I'll tell you why. If you're asking, number one, I would want somebody who had self-respect enough for their body that they didn't share the most intimate part of themselves with the whole world. So I would want somebody who was very particular about who they had slept with, who wasn't putting out for everybody, who wasn't, open like the 7-Eleven all night long, and who had grown up with parents who taught them that your body is your temple.
Would you say the same thing for men?
I actually do hold to a similar standard for men.
Okay, so then what you just said had nothing to do with women or men. That's for everybody.
You
prefer everybody.
Me, I would prefer that people not engage in hookup culture.
Sure.
I think it's.
But that means the woman should prefer a younger guy too, then, who's been around the block fewer times.
No. I'm not talking about. No. That's not what I'm talking. We weren't talking about young there. We were talking about promiscuity. Those don't have to necessarily go hand in hand. By the way, I got married late.
Well, because the conversation right now is about whether you prefer a younger person.
Right.
Now you're saying somebody with a lower body count.
You have to. Let's deal with each issue at a time.
Okay,
first of all, you said first off that biology didn't play a role in terms of men and women and how you process necessarily emotions differently, but then you also said that biology does play a role, and here's why I'm saying what you talked about when you brought up domestic violence. Even that notion that women walk through life and I believe feel more physically fragile than men do by nature of the fact that we are, I think that does play a role. I think that is why when you succumb or submit to a man and you, let's say they betray you, that hits you much harder because a man oftentimes doesn't submit in a relationship in the same way, right? I think it's just a different way of men and women entering relationships.
Sure.
And I think that
in terms of how
by virtue of it potentially being more, let's say you submit to a guy and he is more aggressive, and let's say there is some sort of violence that comes into play. That's not going to, odds are it's not going to happen the other way around, right? You don't have nearly as many instances of women abusing men as you would have of men abusing women, right? They're going to utilize that testosterone. They're going to, so just by nature of that, you're going to have women internalizing and processing pain in a relationship in a very different way than a man.
I agree with that, but I didn't say that biology didn't matter. What I said is you should ignore anybody that invokes biology.
Why?
Because notice how you were able to describe that violence dynamic there completely without any silly things about like, well, biologically speaking, we're blah 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 blah. No, we can say that like there's a difference between like the size of men and women. If a woman's experienced violence,
but that is biology.
Sure, but when you say just biology, it's such a reductive and basic take that it amounts to essentially nothing.
But isn't the reason that men and women are different essentially because we are biologically different?
Yeah, but the problem is people like you say that so much, but the reality is we're way more similar than we are different. We have way more similarities than we have differences. Like, for instance, people getting messed up by their parents is probably going to be way more predictive of their success in a relationship than having a prior bad relationship, unless it was literally like, them getting super physically abused or super emotionally traumatized or something. But we hyperfixate on these like little differences, and it leads to silly statements like women are more emotional than men, when like men will kill each other if they get like upset on something, or they'll murder a partner over like jealousy or whatever. But then we have these weird ways of coping about it. We're like, oh, well, anger is not an emotion, or well, estrogen is a hormone that affects your emotions, but testosterone affects something that's not emotions. I don't know. Like we process emotions a little bit differently.
Very
and
differently.
we have like differences in terms of biology, in terms of size. There are differences in terms of sex. I agree with all
Hormones.
of that. But to make these like super blanket statements and say, well, women that have been in more relationships and are worse than men that have been in more relationships because of biology, it's just like such a pointless statement. It makes me feel like the person has no idea about relationships or relationship dynamics.
But if you look at the breakdown of hormones, even in men and women, and what guides us, if you look at like testosterone, like I feel very comfortable saying, for example, that men are on much more of a steady path toward achievement and ambition and all of those things because you are largely driven by testosterone in a way that women are not. In the same way that women's cycles differ throughout the month, and as a result, a lot changes. We shift a heck of a lot more than guys do. When I say that women are more emotional, oftentimes that does relate directly to our biology and our hormone cycle, which is ever changing throughout a month. You guys have a much more steady you're like this, and trainers, even physical trainers who work with women, will say it's much easier to train men in a way because they're like this through the whole month, and women go like this and this and this, and as a result they're more tired at certain times. When they're ovulating, this has happened. That's just a reality. The reason I'm invoking biology is because biology oftentimes will dictate the fact that women are sometimes erratic throughout the month because we're changing so much all the time, and you're not.
Sure, you can say that, but you're weaving a just so story. You're taking one biological fact and you're pretending like you're able to tell a coherent story afterwards. I could just as easily say the fact that women fluctuate in hormones more means that they're more able to deal with fluctuating emotions and ideas rather than men, who, when they get triggered by something, decide to kill somebody, right? Now, I don't know if that is the case. Like, do men have a higher proclivity towards violence because of testosterone? Well, actually, I think that is the case.
That is the
That I
case.
think that higher testosterone. So that would be an example of testosterone driving men in negative emotional ways, the same way that women's periods drive them in negative emotional ways, although women aren't killing anybody for it. But all I'm saying is that like the idea that we take like a basic biological fact and then we try to extrapolate a really broad statement like women have more baggage than men just doesn't make sense, because our relationships are so much more complicated than just who has a penis going inside of them or who is like a bigger person. Like we can all have all sorts of baggage with us, and generalizing something as complicated as relationships doesn't make any sense to me.
Would you agree that, though, let's say you had, a random room full of men, a room full of women who had bad relationships, if you were to look back and see like how many tears had been shed as a result of those breakups, you don't feel comfortable saying that those women would have shed more tears?
Probably. I think women generally cry more.
Okay, so and that's not tied in any way to their hormones to you, not tied in any way to their emotional reaction to
I mean, it could
things?
be tied to hormones, but again, when we say more emotional, if I give you that same room of people and I say which one was more likely to physically abuse a prior partner, would you say it was more likely the men or the women?
The men.
And it was probably driven by hormones?
Testosterone.
So how do we say one is more emotional than the other? Like everybody has their shit that they deal with. Like it might be slightly different on both sides, but just the blanket statements of like women are more emotional than men when men are like 98% of violent offenders. And then we even say things you said before. We're like, oh, well, men are driven towards achievement. Most of them aren't.
But
no offense, but like most men aren't high achievers. Most people aren't high achievers in general, right? Most people
That's
are
fair.
like middle of the road.
That's
But
fair. Okay.
Also,
so,
wait,
and
and then just real quick, on that video in particular, the reason why I can't make a judgment on what that lady said was, what are both people bringing to the table? Because here's an issue. Here's an interesting relationship dynamic that plays out. In households where women are out earning men, women are still doing most of the chores. So if it is the case that the man and the woman are both working full time and then they go home and then the woman is expected to cook a full meal and the guy's not even grateful for it, yeah, I would totally see a woman being completely pissed off in that arrangement.
Is the problem that like now you have men and women existing on the same plateau? In other words, I'm a firm believer that one party needs to work more than the other and one party needs to work less than the other. It doesn't work if you have two parents, particularly if you have a child in that scenario. If you have a mom and a dad and they're both doing, the grind, say they're working from 9 to 6, they're coming home exhausted, that's going to create this all the time. And I think we see that in society, unless you're super wealthy and you have nannies and you have a whole infrastructure set out to kind of take care of that. So to me, that looks like a situation where you've got two people and they're both doing the grind all day long. That's the problem. Nobody wants to really acknowledge that, but
there is one person that acknowledged it. It's President Biden, when he expanded that child tax credit and he made us that you could collect $3,000 for a child. I do agree. Having one parent in the household is probably pretty nice. I would agree with that. Now, I don't know if they were speaking about children being present, but yeah, I think that if you have children, having one parent like permanently fixated in the household to run that household is an important thing. But again, I mean, like between Democrats and Republicans, who's looking to empower families more to do that?
Not through the government, Destiny. That's not the government's
through
job.
the magical pot of gold. What, through crypto investments? How are the people supposed to make the money?
Do you remember a time? How old do you say you are? 34. Okay.
Wise.
So I remember a time when families stepped up. I remember a time when you decided to have children because you wanted them, and that onus fell on you, and it was your job to provide for those children. And grandma and grandpa stepped up to the plate, and aunts and uncles stepped up to the plate, and we had a more communal sense of all of that. And now what you oftentimes find is people deciding to have children and then they look to the government for that assistance. I don't want families looking to the government to take care of them. I want them deciding I could do this for myself, and I want them saying this is what family is supposed to be. I'm not saying everybody has a perfect family, but community, family, friends, neighbors, that's what I want to see more of. I don't want to see Joe Biden stepping up to the plate to help
and
somebody.
if you want to, that's fine. But then you can't in the next breath complain that like birth rates are declining across the United States when the cost of living is like rapidly outpacing wage growth in so many metropolitan areas in the U.S.
Well, there's also a fertility crisis in the country.
But why? Because it's unaffordable. Because people do make...
That's not why there's a fertility crisis.
Wait, are you going to do like the microplastic thing? Please don't tell me you're at that level.
I am going to do the microplastic thing. Not only that.
For the people that are listening, so for NBER, National Bureau of Economic Research, people do studies on this. People generally have kids, believe it or not, when they feel like they're financially able to do so. People generally get married when they feel like they're in a financial place to do so. When the cost of living is so high, when rents are increasing in so many places, and when the economic opportunity isn't there for people to live in areas near their families, making good money, having good jobs to support a family, they tend to not have children. This is what drives a lot of the lack of marriage and drives a lot of the infertility
crisis, though.
And then you have microplastics.
It doesn't though, because you have tons of women that are going to try to have kids and they can't.
No,
it's
you
not.
don't.
Yes, you do.
No, you don't.
Yes, you
That's
do.
just not true.
Listen, that is not. You're off the mark on this.
Okay.
You're 100% off the mark on this.
Gotcha.
Believe me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just telling you.
Okay.
Do
I
some
gotcha.
stats on women.
I've read the studies. Like I said, NBER has a lot of studies published on this.
NPR?
On what are predictive NBER, National Bureau of
NBER,
Economic
okay.
Research. A lot of studies published on what are predictive factors.
You haven't
for people
done
getting
research
married.
on the fertility crisis in the
I've
country.
done research
and
on
what
like sperm motility is like 20% decreased, and microplastics in our shampoos are getting our assholes and causing the
It's not only
sperms to swim
microplastics;
lower.
it's a ton of chemical toxins that are exposed to
sure.
every single day.
Okay.
You don't listen. You don't have to believe it, but that there is a reality that you have. Yes, you have people that are less inclined to want to have kids if they're in a circumstance that they
Are
say,
poorer people or minority groups that have more children just not exposed to the same toxins, or why the disparity in fertility from different groups in the United States from different classes?
I mean, I can't speak to what
Wouldn't you think that like poorer people would be exposed to more
not
toxins?
necessarily.
So they should, not necessarily.
No,
Okay.
not necessarily at all. I know plenty of rich people that smoke cigars till I don't know what time at night.
Smoking cigar. I feel like you're probably a big proponent of smoking cigars. You're gonna tell me
Me?
that's yeah.
Why would I be a big proponent of
you just seem
smoking
like a cigar
cigars?
Andrew Tate smokes cigars.
Awesome for him.
You're gonna tell me that the cigars and the
Destiny
toxins
doesn't
that are
know me very
driving
well.
fertility rates?
No, I'm just saying that I know plenty of rich people who live lives of they're doing their cocaine and they're on drugs and they're drinking a ton
You
of
think
alcohol.
wealthy people are more likely to be abusing drugs, cocaine,
You
being
don't know any
exposed to-
rich people who are fat and toxic waste dumps and live in horrible, rancid lifestyles, and you don't know any rich people like that?
I know rich people
Look at
that
celebrities.
do. I know rich people that do pure cocaine, that do designer
at
drugs,
them.
and have fun like that. And I know poor people that die from fentanyl overdoses. If you look at things like the opiate crisis, if you look at things like meth in the Midwest, where I'm from, it's not wealthy people that are running, meth labs and that are all dying and ODing and being homeless on the streets. I mean, like, I'm sure there are wealthy people that do drugs. I'm a wealthy person. I do drugs. I love drugs. But like the amount of drugs, the access of drugs I can get to, the types of tests I can run on them are way better than a poor person who buys whatever they can from a weird dude on the corner and then goes home, takes it, and hopes they don't die the next day.
Okay.
Remember, kids.
Telly, how we doing?
Drugs are awesome. Yeah,
Drugs
sorry.
are not good. You don't want to take
So
any
much
drugs.
fun.
Very,
Oh, my
very
goodness.
bad idea. Okay, we're going to go to number 2. So you did Just Pearly Show, which I saw a while back. You did it with Suleiman. I think you were talking about Andrew Tate. We're not going to do Andrew Tate right now, but
Okay.
you did a bunch of shows with her. Right? Were
Yeah.
you in London doing those? Where
Yeah.
you did? Okay, cool. So folks, modern women can't stand Just Pearly for many reasons. I
good
actually
reasons,
did a bunch of. You seem to get along with her on the show.
I get along with
though.
anybody. I get along with you.
That's
but
true.
I bet modern women can't stand you either. Probably for good reasons.
That is 100% true. I will wear that hatred like a badge of honor. But there was a critique of her there were actually a bunch that came up in my feed. I want to play this one, Deli. Do number 2.
We don't believe that Pearl would have the same opinions if she was hot. And I'm willing to bet any amount of money on it. You're all thinking it. I just say it.
Okay. Your reaction before I speak.
I think Pearl is a pretty woman.
I did too. I do as well. She was here. We did a show. But what do you think of that lame criticism as far as I'm concerned? That, if she were hot, she would be advocating for promiscuity. If she were hot, she would be,
I think it's super lame, but
feminist.
everybody does this. I bet if I went through your social media, I could find out how many conservatives retweet things like, this is what girls on the left look like. And it's some 500-pound whale. It's like, this is what girls on the right look like. And it's some blonde woman with like 2 assault rifles or whatever. Like, no, and I'm not saying that it's okay when they do it in a bad way. Because I'm saying everybody does
It's
this.
just
it's
dumb.
lame. It's dumb. Yeah.
It's dumb.
But like everybody does it.
And it's interesting too, because if you look at, if you look at like an Andrew Tate, for example, one thing that I think we can all kind of agree on is that when you look at the women that he dates, they're not unattractive women, right? They're not unattractive women that are drawn to him. So the idea that you have to be, if you're attractive, somehow you have to be drawn to feminism. If you're attractive, you have to be drawn to promiscuity is kind of absurd to me. Okay, we agree there. So we'll move on. Yeah. All right, let's go to 909 on number 3. We're going to talk. This is from actually just Pearlie's show. I love this clip. It's about female leaders and whether a female leader would be drawn to a feminized man. Let's do it.
Was not allowed to be a pastor. A woman has to be silent in the church. I think it's always been where a woman is supposed to be subordinate. And this is what's happening. These comments are just showing society's reaction to women.
Helpmate,
sorry?
Helpmate in the Bible.
Yeah,
but man's helpmate.
Should know what he's talking
about. I know,
about.
but that's the thing. Like, why is she this little helper? Like, she's just supposed to be in the background. Why can't she lead? Why can't she do that? I think...
Again, to my point, a woman can. A woman can. The point is that is traditionally a masculine role. And this often comes down to what both each gender is attracted to. As I said before, a woman can have that position and want to roll and even want to be the breadwinner and so on and so forth. And she can find a guy who will be happy with that and will be happy to assume that position. I'm just saying that's going to be a more feminized man.
Okay, let's pause.
I mean, I don't agree with that.
What do you think?
I think the most feminized men are the ones that want little girls that have no careers, no ambitions, and no drive to do anything in life. Because I think they're threatened by anybody that's like even remotely as successful or as intelligent as they are.
So you brought this up before. We didn't get to this part about. I don't hear anyone. I don't know who you're talking about when you reference like, guys.
The idea that like I would be threatened by a woman that's like a leader.
They're not threatened though.
They just said only a feminized man would be okay with that.
It's not threatened.
Okay,
this is where we differ.
Okay.
It's not that they're threatened. It's just that that's not what appeals to them because they want to be the leader. They want to take on that responsibility and they want someone next to them with an energy that's going to be more submissive. So it's not about threatened. It's just about preference. Like I want to be the man of the house. I want to provide and protect for my woman. I want to be the primary breadwinner. I want to do all this for you because I love you. And in turn, I want some things for you, which involve, I want a woman who's going to take care of the home. I want a woman who's going to want to be a great mom. I want a woman who's going to prioritize those aspects. So it's just, to me, that's not, I'm threatened by that. It's just what I want. In the same way that a woman could say, I want a guy.
Towards that relationship, yeah, that's fine. I guess.
So, but that's not threatened, though. Like I know, like I've seen you go head to head with Sneeko, with guys like that. If you are a
high value man, if you've accomplished a lot in your life, if you're achieving a lot, and if you live in a high power lifestyle, and you're just looking for a submissive bangmaid, that makes me look at you twice. It's very weird to me. But I mean, if that's what you want, I think that's fine.
That's not,
but when you could have somebody that is capable of like complementing your life in such a powerful way.
But that does complement your life.
No, it doesn't. It's
100% does.
You could swap that woman out with a million other women that could do the exact same thing. Why would you want that?
That's not true.
It
because
absolutely is true.
Those guys love those women.
That's fine. And
dearly.
You can. Yeah, that's great. But if you're a high value man, why would you choose the bangmaid?
Why would you?
Because you could
woman?
have somebody that could do so much more. That'd be so much cooler.
If you're a high-powered man, why do you want a female version of yourself?
Why wouldn't you want somebody that can exist in your domain and thrive on your level and be a part of what you do, rather than like, this is my silly little wife that stays at home and she makes coffee for me because that's all she's capable of doing.
That woman is complimenting your life. And that, by the way, those women who choose to be stay-at-home moms, those women who choose to prioritize marriage and family, that's not because they're not capable of doing something else. A lot of those women are wicked smart. I have a friend who graduated from Princeton, opted for that lifestyle. So that's an assessment.
You can say that, but you're living in both worlds now.
Why?
You can't say they're capable because this guy literally just said that like men are the leaders, and you probably believe that biologically men are. So you can't say like, well, women could do it, but they choose not to. No, you in your mind you think that women are better suited for the motherly role, and men are better suited for the leadership. So you don't think that most women could do it. You think that they exist on a different level for men.
I do absolutely think that most women could do it if they decided that.
So you think men and women are even in terms of what they could achieve, like leadership-wise?
I don't think we're equal because we're not the same. So I think we have different strengths and different weaknesses, which, yes, a lot for me is derived from biology when it comes to that stuff. But I'm not here to say that women are less than in terms of less intellectually and can't do this and that. And that's why they want to be, Pearl uses the word helpmate from the Bible, which essentially means that you're there to provide support for your man. You don't want to necessarily be that person out there doing the grind.
Sure.
Again, again,
Which is
hormonally,
a bang maid. That's fine.
But again,
that's great.
Not
If somebody
what
wants
it
to be
is.
that, that's fine.
But
Yeah, it is. It's a bang
that's a
maid.
deeply disrespectful way.
What's disrespectful? It's a person that stays at home, takes care of your stuff, and you have sex with them.
That is
It's a bang
not
maid.
what it is. A woman who decides that she wants to be there to support that family
Support how?
is driving a lot of that ship.
But
What do you mean
support-
support
yeah,
how?
support how?
For example, I'll give you a perfect example.
Go
Me,
ahead.
I stayed home for a year in between leaving Fox News
Uh-huh.
and doing this. I stayed home for a year. I loved that year. I put food on the table to nourish my family every single day. That brought me an incredible amount of joy. I took my kid out to do a bunch of stuff. I spent time with my parents. I took care of that family. I was there to provide guidance and support for my husband and ventures he was doing. I felt incredibly fulfilled that year. And that's coming from a woman who had sat on The View and had anchored roles and done all that. I didn't feel less than. In fact, I felt that when I was fully in my femininity in that year and I was fully providing that support for my family in a different way than I had ever had, I was more fulfilled than ever. That wasn't a reflection of poor intellect. That was a reflection of me kind of doing something different that felt right. So
Sure. And
who's
to be-
to
I
say
don't
that
wanna-
women can't do that?
To be, for the record, I don't want to make anything personal because I get
But
uncomfortable.
you're
So if it is
talking
personal,
about-
but
you're-
hold on, you're back here though, because anybody could be a mom, but that's not just what you want
Not
to do.
anybody
You
can be
want
a
to
mom.
Most
No,
people.
not anybody
Hold
can
on,
be a mom.
You can say that more people can be moms than can be Jedediah on Jedediah's show in Valuetainment, right? So even though I think you said earlier you have a 3-year-old running around, you're back here in the studio because you're doing what you love. You love working this stuff.
So again, yes, I am here, and I'm here 3 days a week, but I'm here 3 days a week, not 5, and I'm here for 1 hour a day, 3 days a week. Why? Because my kid comes first. That's why.
fine, but you're still doing like high value stuff. You're doing cool stuff. You're not just a random woman at home doing nothing and taking care of the household.
I'm not.
You're working too.
But me sitting here is doing cool stuff. But you know what? Me, when I'm at the playground with my 3-year-old and I'm teaching him how to do something and he's learning how to ride a bike for the first time, that's cool stuff to me.
I don't disagree. That is cool
not
stuff.
better than that. If anything, that is better than this.
Yeah, sure.
So let's just be real.
But you're still here. You can't do
Right.
everything
And
for
no-
24
but no
hours a day.
one is
Nobody's spending
saying-
24 hours a day with their kid.
No
right?
one is telling women don't work. No one is saying that. Where is that argument coming from anyone? Andrew Tate himself. I've seen
Because
him on
you were
interviews
saying that you
multiple
didn't want a
times.
woman on the grind, or it sounded like you just wanted somebody that was primarily in the household.
What I'm saying is that women aren't driven in the same way for that grind. You like to ignore biology. I like to own the fact that because we are biologically driven in many ways, the fact that I do have a hormonal cycle that's this, the fact that I did want to have a child, and the fact that that did put me in a position where you have a baby for a little while, you're going to be that's going to be what you're doing. You're nursing that baby. You're exhausted. Pregnancy is not easy for everyone. That changes those realities. And I wanted to have a guy next to me who I knew would provide at that period of time. And that's how a lot of women are wired. That's why they want the option to work, but they don't want to have to work.
Sure.
That's
but
the
I mean,
difference
do you think
biologically.
that, and again, we don't have to talk because you brought yourself up, so that's the only reason I'm
Yeah,
asking.
no,
So you don't
cool.
have to-
And I'm down to
sure.
be.
Do you think your husband would be as attracted to you if after you had a kid, you're like, I'm done working forever and I'm just going to stay home forever?
100%.
Then why, if you enjoy spending more time with your kid,
100%.
if you enjoy spending more time with your kid than you do being
Because
here,
I'll
and
tell
if
you
you
why.
and if you
I'll
have
tell
a
you
husband
why.
to support it, why are you back here
Because
at all?
because I'm a privileged person right now, and I get to come on here 3 hours a week and get a little bit of the best of both worlds. What I'm talking about is women who are in the grind, in the corporate grind, onto the fluorescent lights, 10 hours a day. That's what I'm addressing.
But I bet you probably had to do that grind to get to where you are now, right? I doubt you. Did you just get a role on The View out of nothing? They were like, "Oh, you're cool, come."
No, but
you didn't work hard to get there.
there. I did work hard to get there,
Yeah.
but I never had my priorities up my butthole where I was suddenly saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna remove love from the equation. I'm
Nobody's
going to
talking about
reject."
removing
They
love.
do it though. No,
When did you have your first kid? How old were you when you had your first child?
I had it late. I had my first kid late.
Because
Very
you wanted
late.
to work.
No,
You're the perfect
that is
feminist.
not.
I actually
that
like
is
you way more than I
not.
thought. We
That's
agreed.
not
We're
why I
past
had a kid
0.1%. We're at
Do you
like
know why I had a
10%.
kid late? I mean, we could talk about me all we want. The audience knows this story, though. It's going to get old to them. But I had a kid late, essentially. I was in New York City. I didn't want to leave my family. And I stayed in New York City way
Getting
too
your
long.
master's, I remember. I think in language or something, right?
I got a master's in 1 year and left because it
Okay.
sucked. Waste of time. Don't spend your time in a master's degree. We can disagree about that another
Mm-hmm.
time. And I had a baby late. And my advice to women is don't wait, because you know what? If I had started earlier, I'd probably have another kid. But I'm 44 years old and I'm in my head always about that. Like, is it safe to do it now? All that kind of stuff. But I would have had more, because the fulfillment that I got from having a child far outweighed any fulfillment I got from any career or any other nonsense that
Doesn't
was
it
going on
kind
in
of
the
feel
city
a little
in my
bit
30s.
like when you talk to some of these guys who are like 35 and they're like, yeah, I've banged 150 chicks, but I regret it. I would have lived my life a lot differently if I could have it. Like, if you're a 20-year-old guy and you're looking at that dude, you're like, Really, man? Or like when you're a poor
No.
person and a wealthy person is like, all
No.
the money in the world, it just doesn't solve any of your
that's
problems, guys.
bullshit,
right?
because we know that money does solve problems.
No, past a certain point, money absolutely does not solve
Past
your
a
problem.
certain point.
Past like $85K a year. Your
Not
life is
what
not.
what garbage.
Absolutely.
That's garbage.
It is, as somebody that's been
That
on
is
both sides of it,
garbage.
it is
As have
absolutely
I.
true.
As have I.
It is absolutely true, okay? So you're living
100
you're living
audience,
your,
don't believe that.
You're
That's a
living
lie.
your best, well, okay, if you're going to say like living in LA.
$85,000 a
probably,
year?
As long
Where
as
you
you've got
living?
your, in 95% of places in
Go
the
to
United
New York
States.
City, live for $85,000 a year, come back and talk
What,
to
in
me.
Manhattan? First of all, in Manhattan, you could make that work because you can find flats there for $2.5K a month.
You're going to
to
be living
shitty.
in a box this big. I lived in New York City
but like, look at
my
what you just
entire
said. I
life.
gave you a salary for the entire United States. You're like, well, what about Manhattan, the third most expensive place in the world?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, so in the most expensive places in the entire United States, you're probably going to need a little bit more, but my point still stands.
No, your point does not stand. People shouldn't be content with mediocrity. They
I
should
never
strive
said
for better.
people shouldn't measure mediocrity based on your salary. If you talk to any wealthy, successful person who's not trying to sell some weird Matrix red pill shit, they'll tell you that like having money to cover your bills is nice.
Money
but
is freedom.
It's absolutely not. For
Money
half
is
of
freedom.
America that are obsessed with consumerism, money is more bills.
Money is freedom.
Money is more cars
You know
you
what
have to
money
make
is,
payments on.
Destiny?
Monies are houses that break down on you.
Not everybody, by the way, not everybody who has money spends money on nonsense like that.
That's
Money is
good.
freedom. Money is the ability to say, my company just put a mandate in place that I have to get this pharma injection. I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to leave this job. I'm going to pick my family up. I'm going to move to a state where I like. I'm going to buy a big old plot of land and we're going to be fine. That's what money buys. It buys freedom. It buys opportunity. It buys you not being dependent on the state or anybody else. That's important. That's why people should strive for success.
So I'm sorry, I was in the reasonable range. You're talking about the I have enough money to retire at 35
I'm talking-
range?
no.
Because then sure, I agree.
What's reasonable?
Having enough money to retire at 35 or 40, that is better than having 80K a year, for
what's
sure.
reasonable?
But what I'm saying is that from 80K to like $1 million, there's a whole bunch of
absolutely
issues.
absurd.
There's a whole bunch of, you ask any wealthy person about this and they
Ask
will
me,
tell
I'll
you.
tell you.
No, because
You're
you're
talking to
ideologically
one.
committed to this thing. You will never
I'm
change your
not
mind on
ideologically
it.
committed.
Money
I
doesn't
grew up-
fix your relationship problems. Money didn't help you have a child earlier. Money isn't going to help you fix
It does
problems
for a
with
lot of
your
people.
family. Money, no, it absolutely doesn't. Money can introduce a ton of problems into all of these. It can help. It can hurt your relationships. It can hurt your relationship with your family. It can cause added stress based on what you're managing for your career. There's a
So
ton of
everybody
issues.
should just strive for $85K a year and be happy with that?
No, what I'm saying is that if you make $85K a year and you
Mm-hmm.
feel like your life is horrible, it's not because of the amount of money you earn.
It's in part because of the amount of money you earn. It's not fully. I'm not saying money's going to fix and heal all wounds. And I'm not
Okay.
saying if you're in a shit relationship, by the way, that money's going to fix
There's
everything.
a reason why every single popular
Money gives
rapper,
you-
musician, actor all complain about all of the added stressors that come along with what they do.
And you know
But
what? Not a single
more money, more
not
problems.
a single one of those people would hand their money over to you
No, but a
because
lot
they
of them have-
also know that if you get sick, you have money, you have opportunity to get treated by the best doctors in the world. You don't have to worry about that insurance. You can do whatever you want. You're in a bad relationship. You want to have a
Willis
baby?
just got diagnosed with some late stage dementia. We can't be saved,
I'm
right?
not-
we all living on the same clocks.
I'm not telling you that money is going to be your ticket to, utopia. That's not what I'm saying. But if you don't believe that money is your ticket to a better life and more options and more opportunity, even just the idea of freezing eggs, these things are expensive. A woman wants to have a baby. She's having fertility issues and she goes to the doctor and they say, oh, by the way, that'll be 30 grand. You have money. That's a lot easier of a decision for you than somebody who grew up in poverty and stayed there.
It's like, this
You
is
don't-
like the most
Why would
liberal
you-
American
but
comment I've ever heard in my
Why would you
life.
want people? Why would you want people to not just strive? I'm not saying
It's
make
not
it your
it's
only.
about figuring out how to live a good life without needing $50 million in every little new gizmo
That's
gadget
not
under
up to
the
you.
sun.
That's not your-
It
that's
doesn't
not up
matter.
to you.
It's about what is healthy for most people. Right? Amish people live their whole life. Don't they not even use electricity? And I bet most of these people are fairly
Yeah.
happy. There's a lot of
You
people that
wouldn't be.
live. No, I wouldn't.
You'd
because
have
I'm
no job.
fucking obsessed with the internet. Yeah,
You'd have
sure.
no job.
But I'm not here telling everybody to do my lifestyle.
But
right?
isn't it a better way to approach this if we said, I'm not telling you how to spend your money, right? Like, for example, me, I'm not into material things. I sold all my crap clothes that I got when I worked on TV. I'm not into designer stuff. You see how I'm dressed.
Don't even have a belt on.
I'm not into it. It's not my thing. I'm not into cars. I'm not into any of that stuff. What I'm into is really good quality food. So I love to purchase from farms. Like, that's my thing, right?
Okay.
So everybody's got their thing. My message is like, I want you to be empowered to live the life you want, the best version of that life. I want you to be able to buy the home you want. I want you to be able to eat the food you want. I want whatever matters to you. I want you to be in the best position to make that life a reality. So I'm not going to tell you how much money that means, and I'm not going to tell you how that money needs to be spent, but I'm also not going to put limitations on your ability to realize your dreams. I want you in the best economic environment, social environment, whatever it may be, to bring your dreams into reality. Is that not a better message than, oh, you could survive on $85,000 a year, you're prioritizing money too much if you care about X, Y, and Z? That's not up to me to decide for you.
It's not up to anybody to decide.
But you are deciding it.
I'm not deciding. It's the recommendations based on the lives that I've seen people around me live. As somebody that's been very poor and as somebody that's been very wealthy, the reality is that if it's like a guy that's 5'9" saying he can't date any women because he's too short. If you're 5'9", you can't date any women because you're too short. There's other problems going on there.
Agreed.
If you're making 80, 90, 100,000 a year and you're like, man, I'm miserable, making twice or 5 times as much is not going to make you any happier.
It depends why you're miserable.
If you're sure,
depends why you're
but
miserable.
generally the problems that are present in your life when you're making 70, 80, 90, 100,000 a year,
I disagree.
Right? The problems in your life there are not driven by money.
I disagree.
Relationships with your family, relationships with God, relationships
family,
with your
yes.
community,
Agreed.
relationships with your children, with your friends, maintaining all of these things can be done in a healthy, awesome manner, I'm on the high end right here. 70, 80, 90,000, that's a lot of money. Truly, in most places, we go back to Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, probably 40, 50, 60,000, you could do this pretty easily. But
it's just
for you to say that like, 80, 90,000, honey, you're not going to ever be happy.
Listen,
That's just wild.
It depends on the life you want, though. I'm not telling you can't be happy.
Okay,
on
I'm
40,
thinking about a
50,000.
life where you are spiritually and communally and family fulfilled, I guess. If you're talking about flying to Argentina to go have matas on the beach or something, maybe something different.
Again, I'm not going to tell somebody, if there are people who want to live in $40K a year and be happy, fine. But what I'm telling you is that if you make double that, if you make triple that, you are going to have more options. For example, and you're very comfortable. You have to understand we come from a different reality where you're very comfortable leaning on institutions, government institutions. You talk about, the FDA. I've heard you talk about these 3-letter words. I'm sure you have no problem with the WHO, or that may be making assumptions. But I think you are big pharma, like just a difference of comfort in terms of that. You are comfortable with those institutions. I'm not comfortable with those institutions.
Yeah,
so
you probably drive a car. You probably eat food. You probably do all these things that require these third-party institutions to sign off on the safety of them.
I actually order my food directly from a farm that doesn't deal with any of these institutions. To be
the
perfectly
farm
honest.
doesn't have any type of regulations on it whatsoever.
I'm not saying
Is that
any
even
type
possible?
of regulation,
So
but I do my grass-fed, my grass-finished, my
that's fine,
antibiotic-free.
and they can eat the bluest Kentucky
my
grass
raw
in the
milk,
world.
honey.
But at the end of the day, the FDA is still probably signing off on what goes in the animals and comes out at the end of the day.
Actually, the FDA has a problem with all raw dairy, and I consume that regularly. So you and I are in very different boats. So, but bottom line, do you see the difference though? If you are comfortable leaning on those
I'm not going to talk to a guy
institutions-
earning $50,000 a year. Listen, dude, you need to think about the CIA and the
but
WHO. Like they're coming after you, man. You got to start your own business.
Why? Because the guy making $50,000 a year has got other stuff to think about because he doesn't have enough money to worry about first world problems like everybody making $250.
Obsessing over 3-letter agencies is like the most whitest
Ridiculous.
privileged thing that we can possibly do.
Oh, now it's about race.
It is a function of my identity that I can go online and say, okay, guys, we really got to talk about what's happening at the Department of Homeland Security. You think the average American is getting on flights? You think the average American is worrying about their phones being tapped? I think most people just want to be able to work a job, provide food for their family, hang out with their family and their community, have the weekends off and do that.
I think
that's what most people want.
I think you underestimate a lot of folks in this country who want a lot bigger and better than that. And that's why if people were content, again, it's like a promotion of, and I find that communists do this all the time. I'm not saying you're a communist, but it's this promotion of mediocrity. And it's usually promotion of mediocrity by people who make a ton of money and who are in the elite and have options. The bottom line is you do have a lot. We both have, I'm not wanting or hurting for money. We both are in a position of privilege financially at this moment in time. And we both actually have the unique experience of, similarly, we didn't grow up like that. I grew up behind the Staten Island dump. You didn't grow up with money. So we do know the difference between the two. But right now, today, we are in a position of privilege. If you have a child, I don't know how old, but if you want to take your kid out of a school and put them in a better school, you can do that. That's all money. That is money. If you decide, for example,
I don't disagree. If you're making arguments that money can improve your life, I agree. But it improves your life in the margins. 80%, that big chunk that has to do with your relationship with family, relationship with God, relationship with yourself, these things are very lightly impacted by money, assuming you have enough to meet your financial needs.
If you are worried about money, and that is a financial, that's a stressor for you in any capacity.
If you're making $80K a year and you're worried about money, you're doing something wrong.
In where?
In
Miami
95%. Wait, again, do you know what Miami is?
Yeah, of course. But people live in Miami.
Yeah,
People live
I spent
in
summers in
New York City. People live
Hialeah.
in
Do you think you need
Chicago.
$80,000 a year to live in Hialeah?
So, okay, Jesse,
no. So if you want to say in Miami Beach,
you know
and
what?
in Brickell, in the most expensive
Let's
place
take
in the
all the
United
major
States.
cities off the map. All
No,
the major
not all the major cities.
Ridiculous.
Even for New York, you said, well, what if you want to live in Manhattan? There's plenty of places in New York. You can live in Jersey at really affordable rates. You can live in the Bronx or Queens for affordable rates.
So
you can find flats in Manhattan for.
Go to Nashville and make $70,000 a year and support a family of 4.
You don't think you could support a family of 4 in Nashville, Tennessee?
No, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying.
Sorry.
You can do it.
Okay.
But should that be your goal? No, you want to have extra money because that money gets saved then for your children, for your grandchildren. There is nothing wrong with aspiring to greater than you are.
There's anything wrong with it. Here's the only 2 points I'll make, okay? If you can make more money, you should always go for it. Having more money is always
That's
better
not what you said
than not
before?
having. That is absolutely what I said. What I said was having more money isn't going to fix, past a certain point, this 70 to 85% chunk in your life.
It will.
So if you're having to make even more sacrifices to that chunk of your life to get more money, which is what you just criticized women for being on the grind and neglecting their household, if you have to sacrifice parts of your life in order to make that more money, you are probably prioritizing incorrectly. That's why there are so many people from my generation that are earning 70, 80, 90, 100, 110,000 a year that are working for tech companies and have all this money that sit at home, play video games. They have no friends. They don't really talk to their family. They're kind of isolated and alone, but they're making lots of money because money is such a small fraction of what you need to actually thrive as a human being.
Until you don't have it and you realize that.
That's why I said at least 70, 80K. Why are you saying don't have it? I never said don't have it. If you're making $20,000 a year, this speech is not for you, obviously.
All right, let's go back to, before we continue, I want to go back to your comment about the pedophiles and the guys who like these young girls. I want to give you a chance to explain that because I don't see your point where a guy to say, hey, listen, ideally I would, I'm looking for a family and ideally, I would want to have 3 or 4 kids and I want to find a young woman because it gives me more time, to do, but it does. That's ridiculous.
You can date a woman that's 30 and have 3 or 4 kids.
You can, but let's say they say, you know what, I want to spend some time dating a woman and then maybe we'll get engaged, maybe we'll move in together. If you go in a traditional route, there's going to be a bulk of time here.
The traditional route has people having a child after like 1 year of relationship.
But that's not what a lot of people want. They don't want to start dating you and have a kid the next year.
You said traditional
they want to get
route.
Married.
Traditional route is usually like,
what did they get married pregnant?
They're called shotgun weddings. They're really common.
And that's the traditional route? That's the traditional route?
I mean, it kind of seemed like it. Yeah, women getting knocked up at 17,
that's
18.
Not a traditional route.
And for the boomer era, that was a lot of people.
That's not a traditional
But even if we
route.
go more
traditional,
traditional is usually like 1 to 2 years. They're not together for 5 years. That's like a newer concept that you're dating for 5 or 10 years and not having kids.
People do that all the time now.
Sure, but even at that, like you can date somebody that's 26, 27, 28 and still date for, if you want to go 5 years, I wouldn't call it the traditional route, and still have plenty of time for kids.
But you're criticizing guys saying that these guys aren't saying they want a 17-year-old. They're saying that there's a difference between, in the marketplace of dating, that there's a difference in desirability for, say, a 26-year-old woman and a 36-year-old woman. That's a completely fair point. I'm saying that as somebody who's 34, by the way, who got married late. I'm telling you, there is a difference because when you're a 36-year-old woman and you're competing with that 26-year-old woman, you know that you're on a different clock, that your biological clock is a little bit different, that your eggs are dropping faster than hers are. That's just a reality. So for these guys who say, hey, you're 36, you're great, but I want 3 kids, I want a family, and I think that you might be a little bit too old for me. Why is that not a reasonable statement to make?
There's nothing wrong with that. That's
but why
not
are you
the statement.
Talking about pedophilia,
because that's
then?
not the statements they're making.
What are they saying?
They're
Tell
saying,
me.
I want a young woman who is more malleable, who is easy to
That's
train.
Those are your words.
No, these are the red pill people. I've been on their shows when they say things like this. They want trainable women that are younger, fresh and fit guys. I hear them say this. For Andrew Tate, they say things like this. A younger woman is more submissive. She's more trainable.
Submissive is not trainable.
I didn't say they were. They say more than one word. You understand? There's more than one word being said.
They say trainable.
They say submissive. They say and trainable. Yes. They say she's less traumatized by other men.
That's true.
She's had less dicks in her.
That's true.
That she is easier to work with because of all these things. What I'm hearing is I want somebody that's less experienced because if they knew better, they probably wouldn't want to have anything to do with me. That's what it screams. So anybody that knows relationships, when a person makes a statement, you're saying you want somebody that doesn't know better.
But can we both acknowledge that if we're going to generalize, that somebody who's younger is less traumatized oftentimes by their relationships just by sheer volume, right?
Yeah, but somebody that's listening here also doesn't know as much what they want with relationships.
That's not true.
Oh God!
It's
I'm
not-
sorry.
but
You just
that's not
did you
true.
date anybody? What is your
Yes.
relationship history?
Yes, absolutely.
As an older person who's dated younger people and knows younger people, from 20 to 25, any woman you date in that age is a huge gamble because what she wants at 20 might completely change by 25. If you've got a woman who's 26 or 27, she's probably had like 1 or 2 serious relationships. She knows better like where she's at. For you to say that somebody at 20 isn't, that is exactly what I'm talking
They're
about.
not talking about a woman who's had 1 or 2 partners. They're talking about somebody who makes a living out of sexual promiscuity. They're talking about people.
Are you talking about
That's who they're
OnlyFans girls?
No, I'm talking about women, right? You're not.
Do you think if a woman has had 6 partners by the time she's 25, she's making a living out of
really
promiscuity?
You think Myron is saying? I mean, your interpretation of what Myron's saying is that he's saying if you, as a woman, have had 2 or 3 partners, you're off the table for me. That's not what I'm hearing.
No, they're
him
saying
say.
if you've had like 6 or 7 partners, you're off the table for me.
Well, that's up to them, but 6 or 7
Hold on,
partners
but that's up to them.
probably
It's totally dodgy. You
But
can't
if you-
just deny it and then say, well, that's
No,
up to them when I give you a counterpoint.
I
for
mean,
it.
I would have to hear that from his own mouth. My interpretation of what they're saying is that if you're a woman who has been exposed to more and more guys and you've been in and out of more and more bad relationships, that you're going to have more trauma associated with that. We all know that no matter who we are, if we've had a bad relationship, we take some of that and we pull it into the next relationship.
And the same thing is true of men, but none of these red pill guys, I don't even know if you feel this, or no, you said you were at least consistent with this, but none of these guys talking about relationships have any care for how many bodies the guy has. That's constantly a question on all these shows, that guys can fuck as many women as they want and it's okay, but women have to have a low body count of 2 or 3 at the most.
Well, they feel differently. They feel that I don't want to speak for them, but I personally feel it's bad across the board. I think it just damages you in some way. I think it damages you differently. I tell the audience all the time, if you're a guy out there and you're spending your time sleeping with a bunch of girls, it's distracting you from more important things.
So then, do you think older women should also be going after younger men?
They can.
I'm not asking if they can. You seem to agree with the advice that older men are saying they should go after younger women. Do you think that older women should also go after younger men?
But the reason,
are we all just cradle robbing at the end of the day?
The reason that I'm saying that I understand the mindset from a guy is because women are on a biological clock that has a lot to do with age. So I'm not telling you to go date a 20-year-old, right? That's somebody, if you want to argue that a 20-year-old is not yet in their adult self, you and I can agree there. But I'm just saying that if they're saying somebody who's 23, who's had a couple of boyfriends, who knows, they want to get married and wants to have kids, who's already decided on that path, who is wanting to be more submissive because they want more of an alpha guy and they want to be more focused on family and whatnot. They don't want to be career driven. And you're an alpha guy, that you're a go-getter and you're going to be that, kind of man of the house, run the house. And that's what appeals to you because they're young and because their fertility is what it is.
If the only reason you're looking to date is to have kids, which is the biggest hope in the world, but if we're going to pretend that that's what's going on.
Though? Why?
Because
People
that's
don't want
not true. That's not what they talk about, that they just want children. How many of these red pillar guys are out here like having 20 kids, or having any kids at all? Like none of them. None of these relationship guys are having I'm really happy I started this 22-year-old. She's 26 now. We've already got 3 children. That's not happening anywhere. That's the biggest hope in the world. So we can talk about biological clocks if we want. If we do, even if I do concede that all to you, you can still date a woman that's 26 years old. She's not running.
100%.
You can date a woman that's probably 33 years old. You got plenty of time to have kids.
I'm not telling. That's not my argument.
That's fine. But the really big problems are once you get past 35 it gets iffy, then 40 to 45 starts to get pretty iffy. But when you look at people look at this 28-year-old woman, you're like, oh no, she's way too old for children. What? That's just wild. That's unbelievable. No, but if it's only about children, then sure, date younger. But that's a cope.
But why is it a cope?
Because they're looking for somebody that doesn't know better.
It wouldn't be for me though. I'm trying to put myself. I always try to put myself in the other shoes. And for me, I get if you're somebody who knows you want a lot of kids and I get that especially now with what we know about fertility and what's going on. And you look at you hear stories all the time from people who are 28, who are 30, who are saying my eggs are this. My guys are very kind of attuned to that in a different way now than I think they were a decade ago. Also, multiple decades ago, people just had babies younger, right? Women just it was just an accepted thing to kind of become an adult at a younger age, I think, across the board. But I just don't understand the pedophile. It just seems
because when
like
people say I want a young, submissive, breedable, trainable woman that hasn't been defiled by other men, it sounds like you're looking for a child. And I don't want her to go to school. I don't want her to be very masculine. I want her to be able to take that house. You're looking for a child to do chores. That is exactly what they're saying.
And by the way, all these red pill folks, they feel differently.
We can find.
They just, but
it's
they
like,
do.
This is like the ultimate invasive.
I mean,
Well, they don't all say that. They don't all believe that.
Who are you talking about? Because
I'm talking about if we poll 98% of men that are in red pill audiences, and you ask them, why do you want younger women? The having children is like reason number 8.
They're also going to say that they're at their peak attractiveness.
Yeah, they're going to say they're hot as fuck.
But
they're
going
to say they've had fewer dicks in them.
That's true.
Are these good qualifying factors to choose for a relationship?
First of all,
if that's the case, then we go back to what I just said. Then shouldn't older women only be choosing younger men? Because everything that I just said comes from the hypocritical point of view that a guy has fucked his way through his 20s. Yes, that a guy's fucked his way through his 20s, and now that he's 30, now he's going after the woman that's 20 that doesn't have the same body count he does.
You're missing the point that men and women are different, and they're looking for different things. So women are looking oftentimes, not always, I'm sure you know, I married younger. You're talking to somebody who is completely not on the map in the way you think I am. But oftentimes guys that are younger are not as well established, and women are saying, I want that rock. I want the 6 figures. I want a guy who's going to provide and protect. Even when they say they don't care about money, in the next breath they say, I don't care about money, but I want someone who makes $150,000 a year.
Most women.
So
that is incredibly
we show
rare.
video and video
I
and
know
video
videos
and
that have been
video
carefully curated
Nonsense.
on YouTube. How does anybody date in college if everybody wants somebody to make $150K?
Not dating in college. People who are actually looking to settle down with somebody and get married are saying, I want that guy to make some money.
So who marries a blue collar worker? Where are all of these poor families in these poor communities? How do any of them function if every woman is looking for a 6-figure guy?
Not every woman, but a lot of women want the option to work.
You don't
think the majority of women in this country want the option to work as opposed to having to work?
And the majority of guys want to marry a 19, 20-year-old fucking girl.
But that's why you have all of these women dating the top guy. They're all dating the same men.
They're not. Women tend to date within their race, within their socioeconomic class, and within their geographic location. That's just been borne out from the research over and over again. The only place that's not true is in YouTube videos.
You have a whole bunch of sexless men that aren't getting any swipes, that aren't having sex, that aren't getting any girls, because you have the top echelon of guys like Justin Waller juggling 50 girls at a time because he has made it to the top. He's got the money. He's got this, that, and the other thing, and women are attracted to him. And they're willing to say, well, I'll be shared by Justin Waller as opposed to being, one-on-one with this guy over here making 40 grand.
These are just takes that only exist on the internet. It's not true. Nobody wants to be, people aren't at the top, aren't juggling 50 relationships. Or most of the time, even 2 relationships. That is a fantasy that's been bred and born on YouTube for YouTube.
Can we acknowledge that men and women want different things in the opposite sex? Can we acknowledge that
Broadly
a woman?
speaking, there are some things. Yeah, there are some differences.
So a guy is the reason that a guy is drawn to a young woman, not all the time, but oftentimes, is because they are at peak attractiveness, because they are at peak fertility, because yes, they've had less eggplant in them, which means that they've probably had less trauma. All of those things. A woman is oftentimes drawn to an older man because with that older guy comes stability, comes financial security, comes her having the option to work but not having to work. So because we're driven to want different things in the opposite sex, we're choosing different ages. That's why a guy oftentimes gains value as he gets older.
Broadly speaking, that's true. I think the average age of like matchups is like 25 to like 28 or 29. But it's something to where like 80% of relationships are within a 5-year gap. It's not like 20-year-old women are looking for 35, 40-year-old guys, or women that were coming from families where the household income was $40K a year and now they're dating guys that are making $250K a year. In general, we're all about in our own strata. Again, you can look at any research, any data, it basically bores that out.
But do you understand what I'm saying about why? That's why when you ask me why aren't women looking for young guys then? Because they're looking for different things. We're not looking for the same thing. That young guy doesn't have enough money, doesn't have enough stability.
Because you keep switching topics. If a person is only looking for somebody with less trauma,
but it's all the stuff, right?
Because if we go through one at a time, you're going to realize it falls apart with everything you're saying.
No, it's not. Peak attractiveness, higher fertility oftentimes, I'm not saying every case, higher fertility, less trauma, less eggplant in them, less relationship damage. Are you telling me that if a guy
had to choose between a 30-year-old woman and a 24-year-old woman, and he got along with the 30-year-old woman in every single metric better than the 24-year-old one, is he ever choosing the 24-year-old one because of fertility?
Well, I don't know what they peak attractiveness, fertility.
No, I'm saying he finds a 30-year-old attractive, the relationship is good.
If that 30-year-old has a body count of 50 and a ton of relationship damage, then he's going to take that 24-year-old, no question.
What, even if they get along better and all else equal?
Yes, because you know what? That's going to become your problem. That relationship baggage becomes your problem.
Do you think that the younger girl should be wary of the older guy because of the baggage that he has?
Maybe it depends on the situation. But I'll tell you what.
But it doesn't for the 24 and the 30-year-old girl?
Because they're looking for you're placing women and men as if they're looking at the same things and evaluating them with the same lens. Like they have equal importance. She's not going to care about that as much because what she's going to be looking at is, is that 30-year-old able to provide for me? Am I going to have to work? Is he making $200
for
grand a year?
anybody listening, because I don't know why this delusional talking about is built out. If you have a woman who is 25 or 30 or in her mid to late 20s and she has a body count of like 1 or 2, she is absolutely going to care if you fuck through 50 or 100 college sorority girls when you're 25, 30. So,
I tell them that too.
So that's
we
right.
can
so
agree
body
on
count,
that.
if you're looking at these conservative women, they do care about body count. They don't exist on the internet. Somebody actually talks to them. Okay, I went to a private school and I know a lot of people like this. They do care.
Yeah, I agree.
Number one,
I would as well.
And then number
At
two,
that level.
when we talk about what we look for in relationships, it's so hyperbolic in terms of masculine and feminine. Whatever. The reality is that like from everything we're looking at, it's about 80% shared between men and women for the things we're looking for, and then men are looking for some extra fluffy things that are more feminine in women, and women are looking for some extra nice things that are more masculine in men. But for the most part, I think most of what we're looking for is pretty shared.
I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree. But it's a good conversation. Okay, let's see what we want to play here. Let's play. I think we're going to agree on number 4.
Do we have a video on microplastics?
I wish. Let's go to number 4, Deli. I think we're going to agree here, but let's play it anyway. 1323.
We can make our own money.
We know you can.
We can build. We don't need your money.
They just don't care.
It's like at the end of it,
why do you
exactly,
why do you even want to get married? You said you want to get married. Why?
Because I love men. I actually like men.
Why get married?
But you know what? Actually, this is a point I've always been wanting to make. I've come to realization that men don't actually like women.
That's not true.
They just see us.
I'll
No. All you see us is for sex.
No.
If you respected us, you would want to know.
Is this how I've come across in the past 3 hours?
No. I do think. I mean, that's why you're getting hate, though. That's why you're getting hate because you have a bit of a balance.
I'm mostly getting love. I'm just saying. I think there's a couple guys in the chat who have what I call red pill rage.
Yeah, but as soon as you start talking about
there's a talking point that comes out oftentimes when I do these that men don't like or respect women simply because they acknowledge that men and women are different, and they're not. What bothers me about it is that I hear very vocal women. I hear women saying, "This is what I want. These are my non-negotiables," and they feel that they can say those things in the modern world. Feminism, whatever it may be, has empowered them to have that voice. When you have guys turn around and say what they want, condemned. You're a misogynist. What you said, you're a pedophile. Oh, you're this. Why can't we have an equal playing field here? You want equality that everybody can say.
When women ask for dumb things, they get roasted all the time. How many times we made fun of it's like one of the most played out jokes is the woman with the Tinder profile saying, I only date guys above 6 feet tall, or I'm a single mom looking for a guy to take care. And I saw all sorts of these profiles in California where I'm a single mom and I'm looking for a guy to take me seriously and my 3 children. And it's like, Jesus Christ. But people like this get made fun of all the time. I'm sure you've told a million jokes about them. I've told a million jokes about them. Shows like Pearls literally exist to tell jokes about these people. So I don't know what the deal is. Like, we can never criticize these people. There's like a whole industry built around making fun of those types of women.
So what do you say to a woman like that who says, "Oh, men don't care about women, men don't respect women," by virtue of caring deeply about these traditional, by virtue of him essentially saying that men by nature want to lead?
The way that red pill people talk about women makes me feel like they're full of contempt, like they're carrying baggage
Do you
with them.
think that I'm full of contempt for women?
No, but like I don't care about your particular opinion when you're running cover for this entire community.
I'm not running cover for anybody.
You are, of course you are. You're running cover for the whole.
I'm not running cover for everything.
You're justifying.
I'm telling you how I feel. I'm not running cover for anything.
But we're talking in the context of the red pill stuff, and you're defending their opinions.
Well, I'm defending.
Your question was literally like, "Is it really so wrong what they say?"
No,
and then I say, "I think somebody." You're like, "Well, have I said that?" Well, no, you haven't.
I'm defending my opinions. I don't
then
agree
why
with.
are we talking about videos with?
Because I think it's interesting to get your reaction to what I
your
cover
question
all the
was
time.
about me and how I feel about they feel about women. I don't think you hate
how
women.
do you
I
feel?
don't think you do.
But you
were on the View.
You believe
can't hate
folks in
women.
the red pill community? Well, that.
Or maybe being on the View made you hate women. Almost made me hate women. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Did you ever? That would be.
I was never on the View, but I watched.
It
was that penis in the garbage disposal joke that really got me. Made me real mad.
You should have been on there with Hillary Clinton when I was on there. You would have had a blast.
Goodness. I bet I would have. My queen.
You would have had a blast. Is that your queen? Is that your fan?
I like her a lot.
I told her she was tone deaf, and I didn't have a job 3 days later. So you never know.
You should have brought a pack of spicy hot sauce for her.
To be clear, and I don't even consider myself red pill because when I look at red pill, they all disagree. Like they all see the world differently. You've got I don't know how familiar you are with the Belmars. I bring them up all the time on the show, Luke and Nate, who are not into male promiscuity, who are very pro male empowerment. Get in the gym, do all this stuff. They're very you'd love what they have to say about microplastics, but they're very into the wellness space. But they're also saying hey, guys, don't, there isn't a separate set of rules for you. Here.
Here's something that I know to be true. I know a fair amount of conservative women. I have never in my life, maybe there's a reservoir of women somewhere that feels like, I have never in my life gotten this collection of conservative women who are like, I really like dating red pill guys. Like, they really have it figured out. I love their approach to relationships. I like the way I get treated. I have never heard that in my life. I have gotten a lot of emails from women that are like, oh my God, I'm worried this guy said something in a date and I think he listens to Andrew Tate. Or, oh my God.
Conservative women say that to you.
Yes, will say absolutely. There's a whole... I don't want to name names, but there's like a whole group of conservative women on Twitter that I'm like kind of tangentially friends with who rail against this stuff all the time.
Are they actual conservatives? Or are they like, is it like a Mitt Romney type of thing?
They're so conservative.
Is it like a Mitt Romney type of thing? Destiny
Internationally feared conservatives. That's how conservative they are. Okay. But like, but you'll never hear it in any of these conservative women communities. I don't know if you're in it. I don't believe you heard it. Even if you tell me you have, where these women are like, oh yeah, these red pill guys, like they're so good to date. I love dating them so much. All of them seem like men that are who hurt you types. All of them seem like they're carrying baggage. We won't get into that. A lot of them seem like they have issues because of the communities that they come from. And then when you listen to them talk about women, it feels like it's so much contempt. These single moms, these sluts and whores, the OnlyFans girls taking advantage of everything. It's never like, I don't see like these respectful communities of men who are like, yeah, like I'm a guy, I work really hard, take care of my body, I take care of my stuff, and I'm trying to get in a relationship. It's always so much more contemptuous than that. That's the feeling that I get when I watch almost all of the content.
So I feel that way about some people, truly, like depending upon what I'm watching. But
let me qualify, from what I've seen in this studio, even from is it Paul? Who I disagree with almost everything. You guys seem very classy and respectful here, and I'm not just saying it because I'm on your show. You guys, so maybe in this particular arena, maybe it's a bit different. But my God,
I mean it is.
Out there in the rest of the red pill community, it's insane.
I've had Sterling Cooper on, who has, I don't know how much you know about Sterling. Sterling is former mega porn star. I would say, I don't know if he would call himself red pill, but very much aligns himself with a lot of red pill, I guess, talking points about, women and whatnot. But we've sat down and we've had great discussions. Justin Waller was on here. We actually disagreed about body count when it comes to men, because we also disagreed about, not body count when it comes to men, but he feels like, guys can get away with sharing women. And I was like, women are not going to want to share their man. Like, bottom line, like they're just not going to.
Although you said earlier that 50 women would date one guy.
No, listen. Low value women will do that. High value women will not do that.
But it's the same thing with low value men and high value women, right? Like 50 men would probably share like fucking some celeb woman if they had the opportunity to.
That's right.
For sure. Okay.
Yeah. So we've disagreed, and we've but what I do feel is that Andrew Tate is very different for me, because I spent a lot of time. He actually triggered me in a big way when I first started doing this work. I was like, who is this guy? What is he talking about? He rubbed me wrong, And then I did a boatload of research on him and watched a lot of stuff. And I actually feel that he's very unique in that if you really pay attention to him, I mean, he does often very much talk about, the importance of women in his life and the beauty of being loved by a woman.
Money is off of women, right?
But no, I mean, seriously though, like I think he very much, I don't feel a disrespect toward women from him at all. I don't like to pair, Myron with, they're all individuals and they all have a different approach. I think Myron has a book out now, Women Deserve Less, that I want to read. I'm curious to see what his take is on that. But oftentimes what I hear from these guys is like feminism has structured society in such a way that men are now at a disadvantage, and that men are being told their masculinity is toxic, and men are being told to sit back and shut up, and men aren't allowed to have a voice, that if they say, hey, listen, these are the things that are important to me, it's invalid in some way. So they're trying to give men a voice again and say, listen, you, number one, you need to improve your life and do what you need to do for you so you become the best version of yourself to attract more of high value women. And I find them to be very tough on men as well. You're saying they're tough on women. I find them to be very tough on men that are lazy, men that are fat, men that are spoiled, men that are entitled. So I think it's just I have an appreciation for what they bring to the table. I don't agree with everything, but I think that men need a wake-up call as well.
I agree.
And I also think that women, I don't know why it's problematic to tell a woman, like, hey, if you have an OnlyFans, your future daughter is probably going to be negatively affected by that, and you need to own that.
Every single OnlyFans girl knows this. None of them disagree with that. Of course, there's a decision.
That's not true. We cover it all the time, and they say, no, this is my... But regardless, like, they exist. These people exist.
I'm sure they do. We can find one of any person that exists.
Not one. We cut tens upon 20, upon 30, upon 40.
350 million people. Even if you showed me 1,000 of them that existed, it would be a statistical irrelevance. There's a lot of people in this country and a lot of people in the world, of course.
But then you would never be able to do a reaction show on anything, because you would would then say, well, this isn't representative.
It's important to be, because when we're giving audience, when I'm giving advice to an audience, what I'm trying to think of is like, what is going to map onto most of your realities? And like a woman in one of these red pill videos saying, I want to date a guy that makes $500,000 a year at least, is not the average woman. Most people in my community are not going to unless I've got people that live in Beverly Hills, are not intersecting with women like that.
I grew up with women my whole life who said I want a 6-figure man, and I did not grow up with money. So I mean,
but
maybe
most
not
of them probably
500K,
didn't marry
for
6-figure
sure.
men.
I don't know about that.
There's not enough 6-figure men out there.
I don't know.
I'm telling you, it's statistically not possible. How many men make 6 figures? Like 3%.
But that's still what they put out there, and they were comfortable saying that.
Yeah, and most men think that they want to date a 22-year-old supermodel, but at the end of the day,
but they're not comfortable. But here's the difference.
Yeah.
They can't say that without being labeled a pedophile.
Of course, we say it in our porn preferences. We say it in our media preferences. We say it in the age of women cast in music videos and movies.
And you come in and say, "Oh, it's a pedophile who wants to control his woman," and he's like, okay, well, when
you say you want a young, submissive, breedable, trainable woman that just stays at home and makes coffee and cleans your house, it sounds kind of weird.
I've never heard them say just stays at home, makes coffee and cleans
your
house.
That's exactly. I press so many people when you say you want a woman to compliment you or help you in your life. What do you mean by that? And the best answer I've gotten is takes calls for me.
That's strange to me.
What is your answer? What is besides
submissive?
It doesn't involve like a family. What is like a thing that a woman can compliment your life?
I do think of it in terms of a family, but me, like truthfully, like what I provide. My husband is very much a go-getter. He's that guy who's like always, working on the next project, doing the next thing. And for me, what I find that really helps him is when I can bring peace to the surroundings as opposed to chaos and turmoil. So I do.
Have you
find
ever
that
given him like feedback on a project?
100%.
Yeah, and I bet you can only do that because of like the life that you've lived in like media success, right? If you were just like a normal random like ditzy whatever girl, he probably wouldn't ask you about anything. I would imagine, but he probably can ask you specifically about things because of the life that you've lived.
I don't think that. I don't know that men generally. I don't know what the dynamic is like in households, whether men ask women for advice on business opportunities and
but most men aren't like running businesses and doing things. But I think in most married
couples, I think what's missing is that for many years we acknowledged that because men and women are different, we complement each other in different ways. Like I don't think it would be odd to me it's not odd to me. It doesn't trigger me for a guy to say like, I want to be the head of household. Somebody's got to be the head of household, right? Ultimately, even if you're having a discussion about something, somebody's got to pull the trigger on that final decision. Right? So why should it trigger me? It doesn't at all, actually, because I tend to be more I'm sitting here now with a big microphone, but when I go home, I'm very much like, babe, whatever you want. I do play that submissive role because that's what's comfortable for me.
You say that, but this isn't even a traditional conservative role. I don't believe that. Like there's a reason why there's a saying, happy wife, happy life, right? Like, and that's another thing I don't like too. All these red pills,
they'll
say things, that's not a problem. Every good conservative man will tell you that. I'm sure Paul would say that he's not going to tell his wife, this is what we're doing, and end of discussion. I'm
but
sure
it
that every
that.
Well, no, I know, but that it's a collaborative, cooperative process. At the end of the day, when you're like are both split, then maybe somebody has to say something.
Happy life, happy wife is. Happy life is not collaborative. That means that you do whatever makes that woman happy, because if the queen's unhappy, everybody's unhappy.
No, but you guys you're both working together towards a common.
That's not what happy wife, happy life means.
We have totally different
happy
sayings
wife,
of that.
happy life means like, let me just make her happy, whatever that is, and then there'll be peace in the house. That's not healthy.
Happy wife, happy life means that you're living your life in a way where you're accounting for what your wife wants, rather than just you go to work, you go home, she makes you shit, and then you go to sleep and you ignore it.
That's not what happy wife, happy life means. Guys have been ridiculed. I mean, that's just not what it means. You have men all the time will say happy wife, happy life, because what that means is that if you go against the queen, or if you do something she doesn't like because she's essentially the head of household, that you're going to be miserable because there's going to be an aura of terror in the house.
To some extent, yeah. But what you're saying is like, if you do something she doesn't like, if you like ruin the fucking house, if you destroy the dishes in the kitchen all the time, then of course she's going to be upset. But I think that happy wife, happy life just means like taking a basic accounting of like how you exist in the relationship.
That's your
and making sure that you're
That's not how. Okay. I will guarantee you that's
for
not
my
how.
Conservative, raised 12 years Catholic in school and everything. But for my conservative understanding of relationships is that like the man might be the head of the household, but there is like equal collaboration or partnership, or sometimes the woman, like the man is the head of the household in terms of how it faces publicly, but the woman is the one that exists in, runs the household, and manages the children in it. So
That's
to
true.
say that like the father has like the final say on things, when the woman is doing the majority of the shopping, when she's doing the majority of the caretaking, when she's actually upkeeping the house and caretaking the children, of course she's going to be the one that's like making a lot of the big decisions in the household, like more so than the man.
We're not disagreeing on that.
Okay.
We're not disagreeing on that. I want to get to some chats because they're building up. Deli's
Let
losing
him
his
out.
mind. Okay, so we've got Ryan the Eating Warrior. Biology has played a massive, if not entirely, part in human evolution. Claiming biology doesn't matter in 2023 is an infantile argument. Destiny. We've got Jed. A lot of famous and rich people had do consume narcotics. That's absolutely true. We've got Cool Dude. Destiny will regret insulting the Prophet Muhammad. Uh-oh. Destiny got some trolls on here. Big Booty Latinas welcome. Whoa, that is some name. Man. Jed, can you ask Destiny about the 2012 Iowa State Fair case by a woman against Stephen who alleges he poured nacho cheese on her feet against her will? What is going on here?
She made fun of my shoes, and then I ruined hers. I don't know what that's about. I have no idea.
Are you serious?
No,
is this really what's going on here? I don't even know what to say. Okay, we're going to do, let's see. Destiny's a science denier. Ryan the Eating Warrior says, uh-oh. Wow. We've got representative of Texas. No wonder Destiny doesn't want to admit men are less emotional than women. This guy is an emotional nitty and roller coaster that can't maintain his composure. Is extremely. You're unstable, Destiny.
I'm super stable.
Jed asked Destiny if he believes a majority of women would find him attractive. That's an interesting question.
I don't know. It's hard. I would say probably just because I'm pretty successful. I'm pretty funny. I think I do.
You're definitely making 6 figures, so you check that box.
At least, yeah.
See, but what's interesting to me about you is that I think I saw you talking to Allie Drummond. You had her on, and she said something that was interesting. She was like, you do have a masculine presence, right?
Yes.
You're
it's the blue hair.
Well, you have. This is what's interesting to me is that you have the blue hair. You go against a red pill. All of this stuff. I don't believe for a second that you're not a head of household in your own house. I don't. You don't have an energy. It seems to me that if I had to make a guess, I would say that you are the head of household in that house.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so why so triggered then? You seem
because
triggered.
My relationship with my partners is always collaborative. Like I'm head of household, but like you better fucking believe that Melina, my wife, is included in every single decision I make. Like she chose the last 3 apartments that we went to because where we lived was really important to her. I didn't really care as much, right? So I might be head of household just by virtue of the fact that I make more money, but she's determining most of our vacations. She's determining where we live. Oftentimes she's making plans for us going out and doing stuff. So I'm head of household
because
in terms of
we
file taxes.
Though. Because those are things that aren't important to you. But if there was something that was equally important to you and her, odds are that somebody would have to ultimately pull the trigger on that decision, and odds are that would be you.
Maybe, but if it's a thing that we have a huge disagreement on, that's probably going to be the end of the relationship. If there's if I'm I want kids and she's I don't,
well,
and I'm okay, well, but
hopefully you would have figured that out before.
Sure, but can you give me an example? What's a decision that I'm making at her she's oh no, not that. What could ever be? I can't even think of one, and I would consider myself a head of household.
I can't speak to that. I don't know anything about your relationship.
Because I think that generally the domain of what men and women are interested in tends to be a bit different when it comes to household decisions.
Yes.
So this idea of the man is making the final say, on his route to work. Yeah, of course.
That's why I feel a lot of the reaction to red pill is a triggered emotional reaction. When in reality, the way that this would play out in a household would actually be quite easy. For example, women oftentimes will care more about the furniture that gets bought or the decor, and guys don't care. So they're going to just naturally be babe, whatever you want to do, whatever you think looks great. I think that just naturally happens. The triggered people, the reason people go nuts is because they hear that word head of household and they're well, no, it's an equal partnership.
The reason why that's so ridiculous.
But
the reason why people get triggered is because it's set up as this hierarchical structure where a man is better and superior and where women is follower and submissive. That's why. And then that structure is enforced through a lot of different paradigms. Not just if you were to just say, because if you were to say this, if I were to make the statement that men and women have what I just said, have different interests in what goes on in the household, and in some cases the woman is absolutely the head, right? The man is probably not going to be calling her from work and saying you better get the right groceries today or I'm going to kick your ass, right? And the woman's not calling the man and she's I don't want you going to work 5 minutes early, right? They tend to have different domains of interest just because of responsibilities. Agreed. I don't think anybody's getting triggered by that. I think they're yeah, that's probably true.
But better and superior, like you said, men are better and superior. Better and superior at what? You're better and superior at different things.
Because when we talk about this difference between masculine and feminine, the masculine traits are all cool, awesome, amazing things that honestly everybody wants. And the feminine traits are Ken takes care of kids, and then a whole bunch of negative shit.
I find that really demeaning. I'm going
That's
to be
great
honest
that
with
you
you.
do.
Here's why, though. Yeah. Here's why. Because to me,
keep in mind that whatever you're about to say, you're talking about as a strong, proud, masculine, working woman that has a show and is doing really well.
What I find to be, if somebody asked me what is your biggest strength, and I had to answer that question, it's my empathy and the fact that I'm nurturing as all hell. Those are the two things that I will be able to bring to this table, and I believe in the vast majority of cases, better than any man that no man is going to match that for me. And I believe a lot of that does come from my biology. And I believe that a lot of women are hardwired to be much better nurturers than men, to be much more empathetic, to be much more tender with their children, with their families. So to me, that is a strength. What I think is that we have been trained as a society to view things the way you just said them, that all of these things that men do are really amazing and everybody wants. And all of these things that women do are secondary in the hierarchy. The reason we've been trained to see it that way. They're not better what the guys are doing. They're just different.
When you think of masculine traits and you're like strong, honorable, provider,
but no, hold
takes
on.
care of it, like
strong is biology. That's a reality.
But
men
both
are stronger.
people can be strong.
Men are physically stronger than
women. I
women.
don't care. I've met women that can't carry groceries, and then I've met women that are more. Jesus, have you seen Marjorie Taylor Greene? Can I give a shout out to this crazy fucking conservative woman? She's insane.
You're
but oh my
about,
God, she is so
you're
strong.
You're talking about one.
I understand. But
No.
most of the women that I've dated, I think almost every woman I've dated, because I don't think I could handle one otherwise, is one that can take their suitcase and put it on the top thing of the plane.
Yeah.
Okay? There are women that won't even carry a thing because they think they're too weak.
The point is that
it is exactly the point.
Men are stronger physically
I
than
agree
women.
with you, but you're uttering a pointless statement.
But that's not female weakness.
Here's the problem:
That's not a sign of
people will
weakness.
take that statement, men are stronger than women,
Yeah.
and then from there they'll go, women ought to be weak. That's the problem.
I don't hear anybody saying
men and
that.
women will never be as strong on average as men, not even close. But women can still aspire to strength the same way that men can aspire to strength.
Of course, that's why you see women in the gym.
So it doesn't have to be you. But even look at how
course.
we engage in the gym. Men go and they lift weights, and women go and they do 52 different machines and are cardio bunnies. Right?
Listen, that's not what I do in the gym. That's not what any
great.
women I see doing in the gym.
That's
To be
almost
honest with you.
Hold on. Are you going to tell me that men and women go to the gym for the same things in general?
Also, can I tell you?
What? Okay.
That's their choosing then.
No, it's not. We're all
in the
pushed.
same way that you see women going into the gym and they're doing mostly lower body weights because we don't like to lift heavy stuff with our arms.
Every woman likes to lift heavy stuff with their arms when they start doing it. All of them do.
I do it and I don't like it. So it's not true.
Every woman that I've ever met that started to, no woman wants to be weak. Nobody likes that. And no
it's
woman.
It's not about being weak though.
It is about being weak.
It's about a view of like we're supposed to be competing with men.
You don't have
You're
to compete
never
with men.
going
You're
to be
competing with
happy
yourself.
doing
When you
that.
go to the gym, you're not there to compete with anybody else but yourself. Even for men, that's true.
You're presenting it as these are all the things that are male, that society tells you are male, and these are all the best things. And I'm telling you, no. That is a paradigm that exists when you have women wanting to compete with men and saying, oh, but guys are doing X, Y, and Z, and I need to be doing X, Y, and Z just like guys, when in fact, women have a whole bunch of attributes that men can't do as well as we can, that we don't treasure. Men are not as nurturing as women.
They
Men cannot have
can be though.
They're not.
They absolutely can be. When you talk about things like being a leader, leadership requires empathy. It requires understanding. Requires your ability to work with different people and to take into account all the things that they want and need. It's probably one of the most like interpersonal, communicative, like feminine roles ever. Like to some extent, you set an example, sure, but it's your ability to manage people that sets you apart as a leader versus anybody else.
Women and men will lead differently.
They might, but I'm just saying that, like, even in a role that's considered traditionally
not a masculine
masculine
trait.
leadership. Didn't you literally say earlier in the show that like men want to be leaders is like a
in
masculine
the household?
trait?
I'm talking about being head of household.
So in society, you think men and women have the same proclivity for leadership?
I think but again, like you're using the word leader, but again, like men and women approach those things very, very differently. So it's just you can't like correlate the two. I feel like
I disagree. Like even on this for Allie, I say this all the time, and I would say it for you too. Like you guys you champion these like traditional gender roles, but I've had a lot of arguments and conversations. You're like very combative in a good way. I like that. It's fun, but like that's something that people consider like, oh, this is like a masculine thing. But you're more combative and better at it than like probably 99% of men on the planet, right? And I think Allie is too. So like these are traits that are considered by, I think, I won't say your communities, but like by red pill communities is like these are only masculine traits and women shouldn't do them, but women can do them if they're socialized for it. The same way that men can be socialized to be nurturing and kind.
Women absolutely can, but Okay. Right. But what I'm saying is there are things like you and I may disagree about this, but there are things that are intrinsic. When I talk about majority of men and majority of women, I'm an outlier, right? Okay. And I have a very weird life because I'm very kind of like alpha here and then I go home and I'm not at all. So it's almost like I live in two, and many women do that. Like they talked about, it was an interesting story about Beyonce and Jay-Z that came out about like, can two alphas be in a relationship? Somebody cited them and they were like, well, you don't know how Beyonce is at home. You know, you can be somebody at work and somebody very different in the dynamic of your relationship. I happen to be one of those people. But I think I don't even remember where I was going with this. What did you say to me that I was going on a tangent
We
about
just agreed
something?
on
I was going to
everything,
answer.
and you're like, true, women can aspire to masculine traits, and they ought to, because that's just so
That's
good.
not what I said. It's
I
just
agree with you
different.
100%.
It's just a very different.
I don't think it's that different. I think it's a little different, but
Maybe
not very
people
different.
would say to me, like maybe there are people that would say, "Oh, Jed's masculine because she's sitting at the mic and doing X, Y, and Z." I think for me, it's that there's been a lost appreciation for the things that are unique to womanhood. Like I think femininity is beautiful. I think that the ability to bear a child and carry that baby in your womb is beautiful. I think it's a superpower that guys can't do. I think it should be elevated. What I don't want to hear is, oh, these are all things that men can do and these are all the really cool things. No, that's not true. Those are the cool things if you're a woman trying to be a man. If you're a man trying to be a woman, then you're going to be like, oh, well, I need to figure out how to have a baby and I need to figure out how to be nurturing. It's just not a good
I feel like I'm the only one with relationship experience or hookup or pickup experience when I hear you say things like that in this whole community. Because like as a man who picks up women, the easiest way to get a woman, is to show some of your feminine side. If I get into a woman's apartment and she's got like either a kid or like a cat or a dog, and you've got a guy that you respect and he picks up your fucking animal, he's like, oh, she's like, oh my God, let it go. It's like the number one way to a woman's heart. And everybody knows it. If you've got a woman and she sees a man with kids, bro, when I go to the park with my son when he was younger and I'm around like all these single moms and they see me like picking up and like playing with Nathan and I'm like running around with my shoulders, it's like they're dripping wet. Women love to see guys and their feminine nurturing energy doing things that are like traditionally female things. Absolutely they do. The idea that men that are feminine, you guys think that, and all you think are like men that are screaming and screeching like me on this show, right? But men can totally show nurturing, kind things where they're hanging out with kids and hanging out with and women love that shit.
They can show those things, but when somebody who is a strong man, who has a strong masculine presence, spends time with his children, he's doing it as a strong man with a strong masculine presence. The reason that appeals to women is not because he's feminized, is because he's not feminized, because he's in that space like a man, which is very unique and distinct from the way I would spend time with my children and what energy I would exude doing that. So you're talking about picking up a cat, but you're not picking up a cat the way I'm picking up a cat. And if you
is there really that much of a difference?
Yes, if you were all like, oh, goo goo gaga, oh, she'd be out of there in 2
Women
seconds.
love that shit. Are you serious?
Listen,
of course they do.
I don't know who you're dating, honey, but
same thing with your kids too. Do you think when I go to the park with my 6-year-old son, I'm like, get out of there, Nathan, go play. I'm like at the top of the slide. I'm like, time to face your fears. I kick him off. I'm like, if mom was here, she'd have you go down the slide. I'm making you jump off it, Nathan. And all the women are like, oh my God, that's so masculine. I love it.
This is silly. Okay, we're gonna skip because we're going to skip because we're going buck wild here. Deli. I know we were going to go over, but let's go to actually, you want to talk about Andrew Tate?
I would love to.
We have to do this in a civilized way, Destiny. I know you're heated about this. I've seen some of the interviews, but I want to ask you about, let's honestly have a serious conversation about this, because what I saw a tweet by you. Let me read it so that you have some ref. Deli, do you have the tweet? It is number 14. So you put this tweet out. You said somebody had said, I don't like Andrew Tate, but I don't think it's appropriate to celebrate someone battling cancer. I know Destiny is not celebrating it. Just saying this in general. I see a lot of it on Twitter right now, and it's pretty gross. Agreed. Then you said he's not battling cancer. This story, like all others that leaked from the Tate camp, are completely effing fake. Okay, explain.
There's a lot of stuff that gets leaked from the Tate camp that's like half truth or completely fake.
How do you know it's leaked from the Tate camp?
Because who else is leaking it? The prosecution's not leaking this.
How do you know? I'm just asking you, how do you know? How do you know where it's coming from?
I'm sorry, I didn't consider that the prosecution is leaking stuff from the Tate camp that...
The prosecution's been leaking stuff
They've been leaking stuff that's favorable to their case. Why would they leak
months.
stuff that's disfavorable to their case? If they're leaking stuff that's disfavorable to their case, I don't know why all the pro-Tate people on the internet are amplifying it. I didn't even consider that for a moment.
How would this? I'm curious though. Let's say you're right, and this story about the cancer leaked from the Tate camp. How does it help him?
Well, because the idea was that if he's got like some terminal cancer, because the message that was being pushed was that he's going to die within 6 months if he doesn't get it treated, and he needed to be flown to Dubai for that treatment that also doesn't have an extradition agreement with Romania, it would get him out of prison. That was like the story that was pushed there.
So you thought that they leaked that and that was going to pressurize the system to release him.
Well, because it's all like everybody's trying to win this like public opinion battle right now. And there was that doctor, the guy that is like an esthetician or something? Not that, because that's like eyebrows. I don't remember. He does like cosmetic surgery stuff. He's a doctor, but in Dubai.
Plastic surgeon?
Yeah, who's like a friend of like Tate, who was talking about how he'd done this diagnosis and he had like terminal fucking some leukemia. Or
So
something.
we
I don't
read the
remember.
reports. Essentially, it said that there was what looked to be a malignant growth in his lung. We read through it didn't say that it was malignant. It said that it looked that it could be that way. He needed additional testing. There were certain appointments that had been made to follow up, whatnot. We have since found out, audience, just to update you, that it's not cancer, that Andrew actually did go in, have that
Had already done
biopsy,
this, yeah.
and it turned out that it was not cancerous. But, and I initially
And the doctor
said,
that was involved had pictures hanging out with Andrew Tate in early 2022, and he's since deleted those from his Instagram. But
So I can understand why, if he did in fact have cancer, and I'm grateful that he doesn't, I don't want anybody to have cancer, but if he did in fact have cancer and this was a means whereby they said, okay, this guy's in jail, he could potentially have a fatal result of not getting the proper treatment, we need to get this out there so we can put pressure on the system to get him the proper testing. That would have made sense to me as a leak, but it doesn't make sense to me that they would leak this only to then 24 hours later come out and say, oh, actually it's not cancer. It just didn't make any, that would be the
probably
dumbest
because
leak on earth.
I mean, it was also really dumb that partial texts were leaked of those women saying, oh my God, look here, they are colluding to fake that Andrew Tate was trying to keep them locked up. And then when the full texts were released, it actually shows the exact opposite message too. But
So talk to me about this case. What is your beef with Tate?
the issue that I have with Tate is that if we removed politics from this, if everybody wasn't so obsessively trying to make it a right versus left thing, every person, especially conservatives, will look at this guy and go like, okay, obviously he's a sex trafficker. It's just so obvious.
Why? I don't see it.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm not a Tate. I'm not like a Tate.
Okay, I just want to read quotes. You tell me what you think about it. Okay?
Well, no, I don't want you to do that because
Oh, no.
I'll tell you why.
Want it.
You going
These
to
are
take him out
quotes
of context?
No. The full quote from his Hustlers University page. You can tell me you think this out of context, okay? I've been running a webcam studio for nearly a decade. I've had over 75 girls work for me, and my business model is different than 99% of webcam studio owners. Over 50% of my employees were actually my girlfriend at the time, and of all my girlfriends, none of them were in the adult entertainment industry before they met me. Literally, that was my job. My job was to meet a girl, go on a few dates, sleep with her, test if she's quality, get her to fall in love with me to where she'd do anything I say, and then get her on webcam so that we could become rich together. Whether you agree or disagree with what I did with her loyalty, submission, and love for me doesn't matter.
Destiny, let me ask you a question, Destiny. If this case is a sex trafficking case, why hasn't he been charged?
Because they're waiting to finish their investigation. I like how you didn't respond to that entire quote, by the way.
Because I don't know where that's from.
It's from his website. It's from his Hustlers University
I don't know
website.
what came before. I don't trust like these
You don't
quotes
trust-
that people pull. And that doesn't sound like sex trafficking
If you
to
want,
me.
like, I have the full video of him talking about it on his own website if you want to watch it.
That doesn't meet the standard
Okay,
of sex
so I just wanted to be
trafficking.
clear that you guys don't want to engage with reality.
No,
You
that's
don't.
just here's
You don't.
what
You
I'm-
won't.
this
These are
is-
his own quotes, his own things that he said.
This
Yeah.
is what I'll say to you.
Okay.
If you have a case, they've been digging on this guy for 11 plus months. Okay. They brought him and his brother into jail. They arrested him. They keep delaying. Okay, 30 days, 30 days, 30 days. They have not charged him with
They don't have to
anything.
charge him until they're ready to charge
No,
him. They have
they
180
don't,
days to do it.
They don't have to
Yeah.
under the Romanian system, which is deeply corrupt. That's absolutely insane. That could never
Nobody
happen
agrees
in
with
the
you. That's
United
fine that you think
States.
that.
It's
In the United States,
outrageous.
I think you've got like 7 to 30 days to charge or whatever. In the Romanian system, it's longer. But that's okay.
it's-
But you can think it's corrupt, but that's your
but
opinion.
why-
That's not a legal
why-
opinion. Nobody
if-
internationally agrees with you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what happens if at the end of this there are no charges?
Then he's
Then
released.
what happens? And then your opinion is what?
That they didn't have enough evidence to press charges against him.
Okay, so but why don't they just? It's been 11 months. They've been digging into videos, into electronics, interviews,
I don't know what other records
doing
they're
everything.
subpoenaing right now, or how much more, or how many tendrils this investigation has right now for why they're continuing to hold them before charging them. I don't know. Do you know?
I don't. I just think
So then
it
maybe we
sounds
should wait and
outrageous.
see. How does it sound outrageous? Maybe-
Because
don't we just-
why wouldn't you? It's ridiculous. You've been digging for 11 months. You're holding two guys in jail over and over again, 30 days, 30 days. You wouldn't even accept the security camera footage that showed girls going in and out of the
That
house
security
as
camera
evidence.
footage. First of all, you don't have to submit every piece of evidence
So you-
to the prosecution you want. Secondly, that
So
footage,
why-
I don't think you've watched all of it. It is not the exculpatory footage you think it is. I watched you watching your show. What it shows is two girls coming out of a compound that a security guard is watching and then getting right into an Uber and going somewhere else. That's not freedom of movement. Then all the security camera footage is two girls that are standing right outside a compound with an armed security guard right next to them on a gate that opens and closes.
What about all the girls? What about all the girls that made the accusations and then were shown in videos partying it up? What about the girls that
I don't
said?
understand.
What
A
about
girl
the-
partying up. If the
Yeah.
defense wants to bring that up as saying, well, look, they were partying, so they couldn't have been trafficked, which by the way makes no sense.
So
then they
you-
can do that in court. But that's not exculpatory evidence. That doesn't clearly show just because you were partying doesn't mean that you weren't raped or trafficked. That has no bearing on the case one way or another.
it's a normal reaction for somebody who's been horribly assaulted to then stay in that house, be half naked, twerking, walking around partying, say that they were, by the way, confined to that area and couldn't leave while they have access to a phone that they're scrolling. Does that make any, I don't care how you feel about Andrew Tate.
If you followed anything about pimping, and if this was, by the way, if this was about Epstein or anybody else, you would say, oh, well, of course this is possible. But yeah, if you've looked into or read anything about it or seen anything. It just doesn't make sense to me. Because you don't care to find the truth.
No,
because
I've
it bothers
watched,
you. It completely makes sense. If you listen to any pimp talk about how he pimps women, none of them will tell you. Hold on, let me finish my sentence.
Go ahead.
None of them will tell you that I had a gun to her head the entire time. Nobody pimps that way. It's not efficient. You can't control people that way. The way that you control women through pimping is you find some need that they don't have fulfilled, and then you try to fulfill it. One of the ways that Andrew Tate did it was through love and relationships. That's one of the ways he did it. A lot of women stay in abusive situations for a long time, even without being trafficked. How many women remain in abusive households for years or decades? For you to say that, like, no woman would ever stay in a situation like this is sex trafficking, but you're trying to make the claim that if they're being trafficked, there's no way they would stay. There's plenty of ways that they could stay, especially if they're getting mindfucked by Tate.
It doesn't meet the standard of sex trafficking if you have free movement in and out of the house and you have access to phones and technology. That's not what the allegations were.
So
the allegations were that they couldn't that they couldn't leave, that they didn't have mobility in and out of the house. That's not what happened. You see on the cameras that they do have the ability to go in and out of the house.
So sex trafficking requires you don't see that they are ever allowed to leave freely. And Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate and girls have all come on record saying that they weren't allowed free movement. So I don't know why you're saying that. Just because you see somebody go in and out of the front gate where a security guard is standing,
here's the thing, what about all the women that came out and said this wasn't happening? You're calling me a victim.
A lot of women that are still in the industry or directly employed by him or have tattoos of him.
So what? You have a tattoo of somebody, so you can't. She's not entitled to say her what's going on with her.
Even if it was the case that these women weren't abused, which we don't know,
but they were labeled as victims.
Even if it was, because they probably are. But even if it's the case that they aren't, they don't have any bearing on the rest of the case. In fact, in the Romanian criminal code, there is a specific carve out saying that the testimony of your victims cannot save you.
So, but why are they being labeled as victims if they're in their own words saying we're not victims?
I don't know if
that doesn't sound like a deeply corrupt system to you.
It's you have to see what the investigation turns out. That's what we have to wait.
So is it so you believe? No. You said there's women that are coming forth and saying X, Y, and Z, and it's been proven. So why are their testimonies valid?
I didn't say anything has been proven.
But why is that testimony valid? And you've got people coming out and saying that's not what happened. Don't call me a victim. I was not trafficked. I was there of my own volition. Why is that statement not valid?
That can be part of the defense if they get charged and they have to go to court and they've got to fight over it.
But they've already come out and said what you're saying doesn't matter. It doesn't fit the talking point we're looking for.
Hold on. I don't know what you know insofar as legal systems work. I don't care what somebody says in front of a camera. If they want to be sworn in and under oath, they want to testify in a criminal case about what has or hasn't happened, then that's fine. They can do that. But for somebody to come out and say like, oh, I wasn't a victim, that doesn't mean anything. There are lots of abuse victims that say, oh, well, I wasn't a victim, who are absolutely victims.
They don't have the evidence, Destiny. If they had it, they would have been more than happy to charge this guy already.
You don't know that. They have enough evidence right now to keep them
you
under
don't
this
need any evidence to keep them.
You absolutely do. You need evidence. You have to show to the judge that you have evidence that shows that there's a likely outcome, that there's going to be charges at the end of your investigation. They don't have to charge them until they feel like they're ready to do so, and they have 180 days to do that.
They 100% do, but if they already had the evidence, I'm just curious how much digging time you would need.
Depends on how much they find. Neither of us know.
Listen, you're reading quotes off the internet. You're like, it's right here.
I'm reading quotes from Andrew Tate.
Right, and you're saying this is sex trafficking. So you don't think that a court system would have just as much access to that to say, oh, here it is, sex trafficking, lock him up, that's it, charge him, let's get into... They're seeing the same thing as you and saying it doesn't meet the standard.
That's not true. You don't know that.
Of course it is. He would have been charged already for that.
That's not true. The investigation might be sprawling. They might have dug into one girl's thing and then they say, oh, he also committed tax fraud. They might see tax fraud and they go, oh, he's also committing fraud in financial institutions.
I can't speak
They might do financial institutions. They might go, oh, actually, the way that he runs his casinos is actually really fraudulent too.
I can't speak to that.
That's fine that you can't, but you are right now by saying they should have charged him.
I'm talking about these charges from these girls.
When you say they should have charged him already, you're saying, well, they must be done with their investigation. You don't know that, so I don't know why you're saying that. I don't know that, so you wait for their investigation to finish.
If you've been digging... If you had dug for 11 months into Epstein, you would have found plenty. You would have found what was if you're digging into somebody's stuff for 11 plus months and you don't find anything that comes forth enough for you to say charges today. Let's charge him today, and we'll continue this investigation. The investigation
you can't charge and continue an investigation. You might run into weird double jeopardy stuff. You might lose the ability to.
Let's see what happens.
Have you ever seen The Wire?
No, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's such an obvious thing that I don't believe.
Not obvious.
No. It's very obvious.
It's not. If it was so obvious, it wouldn't be handled like this.
It's so obvious. It just isn't because you're so politically partisan on this
not.
issue.
Listen,
you are. You absolutely are. You absolutely are.
I don't know them. I've never interviewed them. I have no personal stake in this whatsoever.
Then you should be able to understand this statement is very simple criminal procedure. That when you begin an investigation, you might find chargeable offenses early on. It sucks to charge immediately because then you lose the ability to continue an investigation. If I go and investigate some kid on the corner of the street who's selling crack and I find out, oh my God, I got dead to rights, I got a camera with him selling crack, but then I've got a video of him talking to another person, I might not want to charge him because I might want to see who this other person is. And when I dig into that person, maybe it gets to the point to where this guy's like taking money from politicians. And I've got a whole drug ring built out where I can start charging crimes, but I might not want to do that because I want to see where the money goes. This is super common when you're talking about these huge investigations. You don't just find what they can charge immediately. That's so dumb.
But if you're going to look at this objectively, doesn't it concern you that a lot of the camera footage wasn't submitted into the files? Like, why not? But why not? Why not? Just say, you know what? There's footage outside his house. We're going to look and see. Are there girls going in and out? These girls are claiming that they were kept against their will. We're going to submit it into the file. We're going to look at it. It doesn't concern you that a refusal to even go there, to even submit that into the case file, to even look at it could be a sign of a corrupt system that maybe has some direction that they want this to land on, that they're a little scared to kind of look at what may potentially be in Tate's favor. If they had been more willing to look at that stuff, I would be more willing to look at this as a fair trial that's underway. Look at everything. Talk to the girls. If a girl tells you she's not being trafficked, why are you then releasing a statement saying, oh, she's brainwashed? Sorry, she's brainwashed. She can't make her own assessment.
There's a really good statement, and it's the statement, or the quote is, if you don't know how anything works, everything is a conspiracy. The prosecution does not have an obligation to submit every piece of positive evidence for the defense when they're talking to the judge. What they have an obligation to do is, if they come across something that is clearly exculpatory, they are required to submit that or take that into account when it comes to dealing with the whatever charges they're trying to assess. That CCTV footage is not exculpatory. All it shows, I was shocked when I saw it the first time because I thought I was going to have to be like, okay, yeah, maybe this is blah, blah, blah. It further reinforces the idea that these women are under lock and key. The only thing you will ever see is two women coming into a driveway area, a gate opening.
I watched it.
An armed security guy right here looking at them. They'll come out and they'll grab a pizza and then they'll go back inside. And then people like you are saying, look, they had freedom of movement.
What about the girl
despite the fact that Andrew Tate, Tristan Tate, and some of the girls have all said, no, they're not allowed to leave the house.
And some of the girls said that's completely untrue, and they were labeled as being brainwashed, and their testimony and their statements.
Of the Tates,
who cares?
Who still work in the industry,
but
who have everything financially to gain from Tate getting out.
Why does that not make their statement valid, though? They're saying I was not
There
trafficked.
are literally text logs leaked right now showing the Tates trying to get women to make these statements to let them get out.
What about the women who I don't know if you saw? Did you see the Vice documentary?
Yes.
Okay, so what about those women that did you find that to be horribly biased? Just so I know that you're of sane mind.
I mean, Vice has a slant that they want to show the story on, of course. But what do you mean by horribly biased?
Well, the women that they showed in that.
What about it?
When they showed that these had already been submitted to the police, and the police had looked at it and said, "There's no evidence here. This is not supported by evidence."
What the police said was there wasn't enough evidence to charge a crime, which in the vast majority of rape cases is true. It's very hard to get a station.
So let's just assume he's a rapist.
I never ever said that. Do you see how partisan you're being?
No, it's ridiculous.
Let me be clear. This has been my position the entire time. My position the entire time is let the legal system work as it will, and you're the one saying, "Well, why didn't they provide exculpatory evidence?" Because you don't know the process. You're the one saying they had freedom of movement, even though if you look at the camera,
Destiny,
they don't.
There's so many holes. There's women who made the charges, and then they're in the house partying on their phones, talking this, that. Then they take a giant
I've already
trip.
talked about the partying on the phones.
Yes,
it doesn't prove anything.
You're right. You know what? If somebody had been horribly assaulted and trafficked, they would then be not only conspiring in text messages, but they would go on a lavish vacation together, smiling, and put a bunch of photos on Instagram because they'd be in such a good, positive place as a result of their experience of being trafficked.
Business.
That's utterly ridiculous. That is not how scarred women from assault behave.
I'm so curious what you think.
Ridiculous.
I'm so curious what you think of this. Okay, so Andrew Tate says, a girl might say, oh, I don't want to do the webcam business. So, okay, I know you don't want to do that, but listen, come, let's have a meeting and let's talk about it. If you don't want to do it, that's fine, but let me explain it to you properly. In fact, I'll bring one of the girls who works for me. You, your bottom bitch, the new girl, you go out for a fucking nice dinner. Your bottom bitch is the one who does the setup. You don't do the setup. The girl has to hear it from the bottom bitch. And this is where your bottom bitch has to be trained. And that's why it's so important to have a good first girl. Mm-hmm. This doesn't sound like trafficking to you?
it doesn't meet the standard of trafficking, or they would have charged him already. Does it sound?
Wait, do you understand that what you're just saying is wrong? You say it doesn't meet it, so they would have charged him already. They could have enough evidence for him to be in traffic.
Let's see what happens.
That's my position. You're the one saying it's all corrupt. I think we should see what happens.
No, I'm not. Listen, I don't have any inside, like, I don't know what they were doing with their finances.
But you're the one in here saying that like the system is corrupt.
What I'm saying is, at this point, the Romanian system at large, I believe any system is corrupt that is able to hold somebody for month after month after month without charging them.
But that's not a legal opinion. That's your personal feelings on it, which is fine. But you present these things as like legal, like, it's a corrupt legal. Like, you just feel like you don't like it.
It is corrupt. It
How
is
is it corrupt?
because it's disgraceful that you're not. Why you're submitting.
Why? Do you really want to know the reason? The reason why is because places like Romania do have a history of corruption, and when charges like these are coming down the pipeline, people just flee the country. That's why. That's the reason. And Romania has a history of this happening. For up to 180 days, if you can prove to a judge, that I have good evidence to hold them here, then that's...
If they had anything on him, they would have charged the guy already.
That's the fourth time you've said, just to be clear, you keep saying that, and it's not true. You can hold them with enough to charge them and not charge them yet.
You can.
Yeah.
What I'm saying
so what you're just saying
is
is not true. Are you going to repeat it again? That if they had enough, they would have charged them already?
I believe that would have happened already.
But what if they are finding more in their investigation?
Let's see what happens. Again, I've said repeatedly on this show, I don't have any insider information on this case. I don't
when
have
Tate
any
talks
access
about, like,
to that.
committing tax fraud, when he talks about stealing money from his girls, that doesn't bother you at all?
My opinion on Tate has been that he's a net positive for men when it comes to getting your shit together.
Stealing, lying, cheating, scamming. Their whole business, they talked about scamming men for money.
I know.
That's inspirational for men? He talks about working with the mob to run casinos. Is that inspirational for men?
That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the tens of thousands of men who've been positively impacted by him telling them, get your life together. Oh, you're depressed. You're in control of your own fate. Get into the gym. Get some exercise. Run your own life. Be able to be financially stable. Be able to support yourself.
What does it say about conservatives that they need Andrew Tate, a scammer that runs casinos, for that role model to tell men to go to the gym and respect yourself?
You said when we started that, I don't remember what you referenced, that I said, I'm sure you'd be able to find something good that you know, blah, 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 blah.
I can find something good that Hitler said. I can find something good that everybody said.
What I'm telling you is that when it comes to his messaging for men, I believe that he has been by and large a net positive. What I am not able to assess is what went on with his casinos, what went on this. All I'm saying is that the way this investigation has played out, there's too many holes that haven't been acknowledged.
There's
too much stuff that has not been looked at.
Not a single thing that hasn't been looked at.
You can say that they have the right to not submit the security
footage from the House. That's how their legal system works. Same thing in the United States.
You can say that, but why? Why? You should,
because
as
it's
a
not the prosecution's
person,
job to provide the defense's defense. That's what your defense is for. The job of the state is to prosecute in good faith, meaning they have to submit exculpatory evidence. It's the same thing in the United States.
You see no issue here. I see a bunch of issues here. We'll see how it plays out.
So you think in every legal system around the world, you think that the state should be working for both the defense and the prosecution?
I don't understand why the case files don't reflect the accurate statements of the women. I don't care that she has tattoos of Andrew Tate.
They don't think that because a woman can't determine if she was trafficked or not.
Oh, so who can? Some psychologist that they roll in and they say, oh, by the way, you're brainwashed, but you're not?
That's the point of an expert witness. Do you want to get rid of those in courts too? Do you not disagree?
Who are
an
they?
expert witness is oftentimes somebody that the court has deemed has qualifications to make statements outside of things.
Who is that psychologist that came in and evaluated this? In fact, Jasmina said, I never stood in front of a psychologist.
She doesn't need to.
So how did they determine that she's brainwashed?
Because the point of an expert witness is to take some facts of a case and extrapolate.
Oh, okay.
That's what an expert witness is.
Listen,
a normal witness is brought in to testify to their own experience. An expert witness is brought in to extrapolate from facts of a case. That's what an expert witness is in the case of the court of law.
Let's just decide now that some of the women were telling the truth and some were lying based on our own predetermined idea of how this should play out, because that seems to be what's happening. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't think you understand that the witness testimony is not relevant for this charge. Okay. If I can find you a 12-year-old girl that says she consents to having sex with a 30-year-old man, would you care what she says?
That's a minor. That's a different
story.
I didn't
No. But why wouldn't you care?
Adult.
Why wouldn't you care?
Well, that's a minor. That's different. We're not talking about a grown woman here.
The correct answer, if you're scared to give it, the correct answer is that she's not in a state of mind or able to consent to that relationship. It's statutory rape. A woman can't consent to being sex trafficked. So even if she says that, like, oh, well, I wasn't, or it didn't happen, if there are messages that show that, oh, well, when Andrew Tate brought you down, he was promising to marry you. He said that he loved you more than anyone else in the world. It doesn't matter what she says after the fact. She was brought there under terms of deception, which is what is needed to prove sex trafficking.
let's see how it turns out.
I agree. We should.
Let's see. And
But you're
maybe
the one
we'll
calling the
cover
system
it.
corrupt
No,
the entire time of the way. I think it's the system's working fine.
I don't think the system's working fine.
Okay, because you don't like expert witnesses and you don't like
I don't think
prosecution?
there's too many loopholes in the
There's
stories.
you haven't thought of a single loophole.
I just repeated them to you, but I want to close. Deli, do we have more? I
Deli.
just want to make sure we get to
What
it.
kind of super chats we got?
You got a couple of super chats.
Bring them in.
Let's do the super chats first, and then I just want to do one last thing before we close. Oh, Deli, you sent me these. See, I was so immersed in conversation. Let's see. We have Mr. Renegade. Jed, this debate with Destiny is just a warm up for what you're going to encounter on the Whatever podcast. You know the Whatever podcast?
Oh yeah, I almost did it a couple days ago. Why, are you going to go out there?
So funny. They asked me to go out there. I think it would be hysterical, me against a bunch of modern women, but I don't like to leave my kids, so we'll see. But it's fun. It's a funny podcast. Will Destiny appear on Rich Cooper's channel? He's been invited.
I don't know who that is. Maybe
Rich Cooper?
I don't know anybody in this side of the world.
Oh, okay. Okay. That would, by the way, that would be fantastic.
Is he in the studio?
He's not. I don't know where he is. He does, I think, remote, but that would be an interesting exchange back and forth. He's kind of like I don't know, maybe like a Rollo type. Rollo Tomassi. Have you debated Rollo?
I would, but he's a fucking coward, but we'll see.
All right. Last stop 3. Man, last stop 3. I don't know what that means. I'm not condoning anything that was
less
said
than 3
here.
is like a heart. If that's what it says.
Can Destiny elaborate on why he's comfortable with polyamory and if there would be long-term effects on society if this became the norm?
I'm comfortable with it personally because I am a fuckboy and I like to fuck around, and my partner generally needs the same freedom that I have. Otherwise, I think it's an uneven relationship. I don't know if it'd be stable in a long term. Like if we decided to have like a family or children, I don't know if we would.
Don't you have a child?
I do, but it's with an ex-girlfriend.
Okay, so it's not okay. So would you change if you? That's interesting.
If we wanted to have a family, I would imagine, just because I don't know if you have the time to manage all that shit.
Do you think you could change given that you've been living this way for so long? Do you think that would be something you could do?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe.
Can I ask you something?
You can ask me whatever
honestly
you want.
about your relationship. I'm very curious.
Yeah, ask away.
I would love to have actually your girlfriend because I don't want to ask her. She's not here to represent herself,
My wife,
but your wife.
Fair, yeah.
So how do you do that? How do you, I mean, it's one thing for you, I think, to say, I need the sexual freedom, whatever, but let's say you're hanging out with your wife on a Tuesday, you're intimate with her, and I'm guessing you have a good sex life, whatever. And then on a Wednesday, she's out sleeping with somebody else. How does that not gnaw at you in some way?
I'm just not like a very jealous person, but there's different people that have different.
That's odd though.
Yeah, probably a little bit, yeah. But that's why I said before, I don't recommend my lifestyle for everybody.
Is this somebody you think you would want to potentially? You're married, so you would want to potentially have a family with. Like this is somebody.
Of course, she's my wife. She's like the coolest person I know. Yeah.
So to me, it's like there's something. Don't take this word the wrong way.
Take it out.
But I often use the word when I talk about women who are hyper promiscuous and women who don't pair sex with emotion. I use the word broken, and what I mean by that is that something in their system is kind of like it's off. Like it shouldn't be that way. I feel like women shouldn't be inclined to behave that way. As a guy, I always think of men as quite territorial by nature, and that guys oftentimes should be wired, or vast majority of cases would be wired, to be bothered by the idea of their woman being shared in any way, or their woman going off and being intimate with somebody else.
Yeah, I guess for me, I know the value that I provide in a relationship. I don't think my wife's going to leave me for anybody. If she doesn't, I find another wife, I guess.
Is there
in terms of like jealousy and whatnot, I just don't feel very jealous very often. And there's like a lot of sexual experiences that I still enjoy chasing. And I wouldn't have any respect for myself or my wife if she stayed home while I was out messing around with other people and she wasn't allowed to do anything. It just wouldn't make any sense to me.
Who do you think is responsible for that paradigm in your relationship? For example, if you turned around tomorrow and said to her, I don't remember her name. Melina. Okay. If you said, Melina, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to be with you. Do you think she would jump on it? I have a hunch that she might.
She would probably, yeah.
Okay. So what?
Well, I don't actually. Hold on. I shouldn't say that. She's gonna fucking kill me if I say that. Our relationship is complicated. I'll say that. I think we both enjoy messing around a lot. Even outside of sexual relationships, I have a proclivity for very dramatic, insane turmoil. I love that in my life. On my stream, there's a lot of crazy people. When I travel, there's a lot of crazy people. I think you commented before I'm going on. I think I've got like 7,000 jihadists outside that are probably waiting to murder me because of my tweets earlier. Yes. So this is all like really fun and exciting for me. I think sometimes for her, and God bless her for even remaining with me for the 4 years she has, it can be hard to deal sometimes with the crazy shit that I'm inviting in my life all the time. That's not unique to like sexual or professional relationships. So sometimes for that, she'd probably like, if we could like chill a little bit, that'd be fine. But she's dealt with me so far. And I mean, she's still hanging on. So. And
what is your sexual, you have some, like you only sleep with women, but you're intimate with men. Explain to me. I'm half bi, you know. What does that mean?
I mess around with men a little bit, but I would never like date a guy.
But you do everything else but date them, but take them seriously.
Not everything else, but I don't know how like deep you want to get into like if
Well,
there's like an after hours like plug talk with Jed.
Do you ever? Is there ever been an instance where you and your wife are like sharing the same guy, or is there
No, that'd be fun though, but no, because it's really hard to find like bisexual guys. Most guys are like pretty gay.
Do you entertain the idea that somebody could fall in love with somebody else, and that could be a big problem?
I'm a really cool guy. I don't think she's gonna fall in love with anybody else. But if she does, then I'll just find a different, more compatible girl. Fuck it.
Okay, so somebody would hear that and say she's replaceable to you, and that's why this whole dynamic
If she was
works.
replaceable to me, I would have replaced her by now. I super love her. We get along like super well. I don't think either of us are going to find... She's a really unique person. I think I'm a really unique person. Just because we have sex with another person, I don't think either one of us is going to find somebody who's like, oh my God, I'm replacing you with this person. I don't think that's going to happen. But
what do you say to like a critic who would say he's just not with somebody that he wants to give himself fully to, and that's why he's distracted, he's with the wrong girl?
there's a lot of people that have their ideas about how... The thing that annoys me the most is that like I understand monogamous relationships, and I think that's cool, and there's something beautiful there, and that's awesome. And if people want to do that, I have full respect for that. Not only that, I would probably say that like 98% of people should be in those types of relationships. That's fine. But a lot of monogamous people have ways of doing things that they project onto me. And all I can say is that like the projection is not true, that either like I'm secretly jealous or I'm getting cucked or she's getting cucked or she's secretly jealous or whatever. The reality is that like all types of relationships have types of jealousies. Maybe ours involves fucking other people. Other people involve just talking to coworkers, right? Like monogamous people, don't take this as an attack on monogamous people because I'm not. But monogamous people say things like to me like, "Oh my God, like your relationship sounds insane. I could never do it." But then I look at a lot of monogamous relationships, and a wife will be like, "I don't like your new female coworker. You need to move offices." Or like a husband will be like, "You went out yesterday with like some friends, and there was a guy there, and I think you'll sleep with him if you have the chance to. So you're not allowed to go out with those friends anymore." And it's like, damn, there's like a lot of jealousy in monogamous relationships too. I think people should try what they like to try.
Do you
what they
talk?
Want to do,
Do you have a rule in your house like we don't talk about?
No, I would never do that. Like, we have to both be comfortable with it. I would never be in a relationship where it's like, okay, we can hook up with other people, we can never talk about it, because that sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. We're like, I'm so upset, I don't even want to think about it. Like, we're both like pretty sexually open people.
Why do you think, though, if you were to have a family, that would need to change? Is that some acknowledgement that the stability of monogamy is ideal for family and society at large? Or what does that mean to you?
The thing that I would be careful about is I think that having... parental roles are pretty important, and if you had like two parents and they like on weekends or whatever, the kids were at grandma's and you went out and did like swinger parties or shit, I think that'd probably be fine. The worst things I'm thinking of in terms of like poly stuff or open stuff is like having a bunch of like strangers like walking around the house would probably never be okay. Or like taking my kid and introducing to like, oh, there's another girl that I have sex with sometimes. Like here's like that would be a really weird setup. But these are things as a single parent, like I already kind of deal with. Like his mom has to be careful in terms of like what kind of guy do I introduce to Nathan? I've got to be careful in terms of what kind of girl do I introduce to Nathan, my son, because we're trying to be respectful of like each other's parental roles. But when I say that, I'm not sure if the poly stuff would work for like a family. It usually just comes down to like a matter of time, because kids, especially in the first like 6 years before they're going to school, I'm sure you know this right now, are very fucking time consuming.
Yes.
And I don't know if the desire would be there for, and then like if she's working with child, if she's got like this, anywhere from 1 to 12 months of not wanting to do anything sexually after pregnancy, I don't know if she's going to want me going out like fucking a bunch of girls while she's like taking care of a kid or anything. So I feel like logistically it probably wouldn't work. I don't know if ideologically I'm opposed to it, but it seems going to be a lot of trouble.
I have one more topic I want to get to you, but before, I just want to ask you, like, I don't even know how to word this appropriately, Deli. I'm not going to lie. By the way, folks in the chat, let me just say this. If I'm not getting to all of the chats today, we got flooded. It's hard to kind of do this and do all that. So I apologize. I will make it up to you next show. Let me ask you this question about
whether the exculpatory evidence. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. It's about emasculating men on television. I don't know how you feel about that, but this was an interesting article. This is one thing I want to do, Deli, before we close today, because I think it's an interesting topic about male leads in films. I'm trying to get it for Deli so he can. Deli, do you see that one?
Yep.
Okay, cool. CBR.com says that. Do you know Dungeons and Dragons movie at all? I don't, so I'm going to pronounce all these things.
I've seen like trailers for it, but I don't think it's come out
just
yet.
be prepared. I'm going to pronounce everything wrong now. But they intentionally.
You got Dungeons and Dragons right.
I got that part right. They intentionally emasculate the leading man. They proudly say this, the writers. It says the Dungeons and Dragons movie's writing team revealed they intentionally emasculated the leading man in the film and put the woman on the front lines. They spoke with Variety, and they discussed how Michelle Rodriguez's Holger the Barbarian and Sophia Lillis's Doric the Druid tend to engage in the front lines of battle compared to their male party members. That was not an attempt at wokeness, they say. Swear to God it wasn't. We like that Holga is the bruiser that does the dirty work for Edgin, and he doesn't like to get his hands dirty. We also love emasculating leading men. It's an open admission that they like to emasculate leading men. One thing that I've noticed in consumption of media, whether it's, TV, movies, whatever it is, I talk about this a lot, is there seems to be a continued emasculation of men that happens on screen. Oftentimes you'll see the fat guy, the lazy guy, the guy in the marriage who isn't doing anything right. He's outside, eating a donut over the garbage pail, hiding from his wife. And I think about the impact that has on men who are watching this at home and being made to feel like maybe they couldn't be a head of household, that guys need to kind of sit back and women are more capable, more competent. The women always seem to be in charge and competent, and the guys always seem to be lost in space.
That's
what
a
do you
really
think about
classic
that?
trope, though, isn't it?
Well,
like if I think of
yes.
like even in shows where the men are really educated, in the Cosby Show, isn't it generally his wife that's like really kind of like got everything under control, and Bill's
he
kind of
was
like
a
goofy.
doctor.
He was, but he was still kind of like a goofy guy, right? Or in like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the father was very much like go get it, but he's also like fat, and the wife was like very much like the scary kind of person in the household sometimes. So even when the husbands are like really educated, it almost seems like the wives play these really strong roles. Here, this is like a broad. There's two parts here. Okay, this is a really broad thing that I have. It's probably going to trigger you. I'm not trying to trigger you. Okay, I think that women have done a really good job over the past 50 years. Not just women, but like society's pushed women towards wearing all of these hats and assuming all of these roles that we traditionally thought women never could. We didn't think women could exceed and excel in school like they are. We didn't think that women could start to move into the jobs that they are. We didn't think that women, given access to reproductive control and family planning, everything would be as promiscuous and whatever as they are. Like women are able to do all of these things now traditionally that they hadn't, and they've stepped into these roles, and it seems like they now, whether we're happier or not happier, people debate over the surveys, but they're doing things that we thought they would never want to do. I don't think a woman want to work till she's 35. That's a man thing. But as soon as you give a woman some Plan B or some birth control and some financial aid, she's like, fuck it, I actually really like my career and I really like traveling, right? But the issue then is that when we look at men, and I think men are in this weird world where it's like, okay, well, my job was I was supposed to be the household provider. I go to work, I suffer there, and then at least because of that, I'm able to give a paycheck to a woman. And now I have like a family unit that kind of is built around this dynamic. But men have this huge identity crisis where women have assumed all these roles, and men are like out here, and it's like, okay, well, I'm working. And we even saw the woman say it in the video earlier where she's like, I don't need your paycheck. And the guy's like, okay, well, fuck me. That's like all I have to offer. And men have this like huge identity crisis of not knowing what they can do. And on one end, you've got feminists that push feminizing men, which to some extent I think would be incredibly positive, but they don't ever actually push feminizing men in terms of like, let's make men more emotionally intelligent, more communicative, more empathetic in relationships. Instead, it's just a constant attack on traditional masculinity. Like, fuck the brave man, fuck the strong man, they just attack. Instead of ever building up like the more feminine qualities, they just attack the masculine ones. And then you've got, on the other end, you've got like red pillars saying what you need to do is you need to be hyper ultra masculine, when the reality is that like, if a woman is working a job and she's got her paycheck and shit handled, like if she wants some ultra masculine dick, like you said, she's going to sleep with a top 20%er. You being more masculine isn't going to win that woman unless you're like a top 1%er. So I think men have a big identity crisis in terms of like, where are they supposed to be? And I don't feel like they get good advice from anybody. But okay.
Why do you think they leave those guys that you talked about, like guys who, guys should be more feminized, guys should be more emotionally intelligent, guys should be all of those things? If that's true, then why do you see women repeatedly leave guys like that and go after the hyper-masculine guy, or look over that guy's shoulder toward the hyper-masculine guy? See, I don't think women want any of those things. I do think they want someone who's communicative. I do think they want someone who's respectful. I do think they want someone who's honest. You enter a dynamic in a relationship, I think there's an expectation that you would fulfill whatever commitment that is that you both agree to. But I don't think women want feminized men. I think they want a rock, a sturdy rock. And when they ask for more emotion from you and you give it, very oftentimes is a turn off.
I just totally disagree. I don't think there's any data that supports the idea that women are like running away from feminized men. I don't think that, I hear this thing a lot that if you show vulnerability to a woman that she'll leave you. But then I think back to the early example I gave you, like if you hug like a child or a cat, like women love you.
Why are they sleeping with all the bad boys then?
I can tell you why. Because they like confidence. Everybody likes confidence. But I don't know if that's like a masculine or feminine trait or just like a maturity trait. But I think that when you think of like, and it's so funny because it's such an easy thing to disprove. People say like women love bad boys. If I could show you like a 250-pound guy that like deals drugs and plays League of Legends all day, she's not gonna be attracted to that guy, right? But she's attracted to in order to thrive in those bad boy situations, usually you have to be very confident, very sure of yourself. You usually have to be pretty charismatic. You have to have good conversation skills.
But you also have to be somewhat authoritative. Like I view a feminized man. Like when I think of feminized, I think of more submissive and more truly feminine. That's not appealing. I think what's appealing about a man to most women, including the bad boys, by the way, I always say they don't want to get cheated on, but they want someone who's going to be authoritative, that has a dominant strain to him. Somebody's going to be dominant in the bedroom. Most women don't want a submissive in the bedroom. So I think, to advise men to be feminized as if that's going to somehow get them more women, I think that's bad advice.
It's not the masculinized. I think most men probably have about an appropriate level of masculinity. As long as you're a man and you've got testosterone and biologically you're all there, you probably have an okay amount of masculinity. I think the two things you generally need to work on is a little bit of femininity in terms of like being able to communicate, be emotional, but it's probably the maturity aspect.
But
it's
testosterone
like
is, for a lot of guys, testosterone is on the decline. It is absolutely on the decline. And you don't think you often,
I have very low testosterone. Maybe that's obvious to you or whatever. But like, I think that relatively speaking, in terms of like success, leadership, in terms of like being horny as fuck, in terms of doing all these things, like I think I'm a relatively masculine person. I don't know if like the testosterone level falling by 1% is going to be like, oh my God, like everything is over.
I mean, I really see a society that loathes masculinity as women oftentimes crave it. I mean, I think women generally do like, we talk about muscles and all that stuff. I don't know how you feel about that, but one of the reasons it's not aesthetics for us, it's really just sturdiness. It's like we're walking down a dark alley and somebody's going to be able to jump in and take care of things. It's strength. Women really appreciate strength in men.
I totally
fortitude.
Disagree. If you're talking to women that are like looking for relationships, like it's nice to have those things. This is how I view it. There's like this maturity bubble that fills up like 90% of what a person's looking for, and then on the side you've got like these very masculinized and very feminized traits. So like if you've got a guy that's meeting all these things for you and he's like really tall, he's got like really big muscles, that's a cool bonus, but it's never selling you in a relationship. The same thing with a woman. If you've got like
it's not
a woman who's like,
pick a meathead that's
exactly, sure. No, they're awesome bonuses because they accentuate the differences between us. Same thing with a woman with a really nice body, or a woman who's like a 4'11", very short woman, or a very cute woman. Like these are nice things, assuming all the other things are being met. Like the feminine and the masculine, I think they're like the frosting on the top of the cake. But people
what do you
fixate
view,
on
though?
these
I'm
things.
curious because you and I have very different views. Before we close, I'm probably going way over here. Deli's going to kill me, but
Jed.
we're going to be
shit.
1 minute. Oh, okay, we have to go.
Oh my goodness. Do you have like a $50 super chat or anything big to read?
Do we have anything big to read before? No. Okay. All right.
losers.
I didn't even realize what time it was. See, it was such a good conversation that I completely forgot about what time it was. Destiny, I want to thank you for coming today.
Yeah,
I had
fun.
a great discussion. I know we agree to disagree on certain things, but it's always a good talk. I know you'll probably go and cut up a bunch of stuff and say Jed's dumb on your channel, put a big ass thumbnail.
You guys can cut me up too, though. Don't worry.
No, we don't do. We don't play. That way. You'll see. We're pretty nice.
I feel like usually my guy uploads like long form stuff. That's what my channel's known for.
Yeah, I'm not crazy. I'm not going to be like, oh, he was such a moron. He was such. You're not going to see that. Okay. He's like, I can't say the same.
I do think you're really politically biased when it comes to Andrew Tate. But.
Listen, we'll see how it turns up. I don't like what I've seen in the trial so far and the way it's been handled, but I don't know him personally. I don't have any. It's not. He's not my buddy, and I don't have him tattooed on my arm. Is what I'm saying. All right, everyone. Thank you for being here, Destiny. Thank you for being here, audience. I love you. I'll see you back here. What's today, Deli?
Monday, I think.
Oh man, I'm not ready for it to be Monday. I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you very much.